Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the May 7th, 2024 meeting of the Edina City Council. We welcome all of you that are meeting with us here in person this evening, and there are some online. We've been doing these meetings in a hybrid fashion during COVID and since COVID to accommodate our residents. And as Director Benarath said, people are watching on cable TV or on their computers at edinamn.gov live meetings or possibly on Facebook. And what will come up fairly quickly is an opportunity to make community comment about things that are of a concern to you. Also another opportunity for participation in the meeting tonight is a public hearing portion of the meeting, and we'll get to those in a little while. And the phone number, I'm going to ask them to put the phone number up one more time for people to call in for community comment, especially because they may want to be ready to go here because we'll be getting to that fairly quickly. So having provided that information, let's call the meeting to order, and let's ask our clerk, Sharon Allison, to call the roll. Clerk Allison.
Councilmember Agnew.
Here.
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Councilmember Pierce.
Here.
Councilmember Risser.
Here.
Mayor Hovland.
Here. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everybody. And we have a form of meeting agenda in front of us this evening that's previously been published to the citizens of Edina as well. And I'm wondering if anybody has any changes they want to make to the meeting agenda from a staff standpoint, council standpoint. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda as published?
So moved.
Member Jackson moves. Member Pierce seconds the adoption of the meeting agenda as published. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the meeting agenda as published, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. And now we are at community comment. So let's get that number back up on the screen here momentarily, and or for a moment, I should say. But I'm going to first go to folks in the audience that may wish to address the council on a matter of concern to them. And as Director Benarath said, please keep in mind you'll have 3 minutes. We try to treat everybody the same here, and you'll get a 30-second kind of warning with that yellow light, and then you should be thinking about wrapping up your comments. So please remember to give us your name and address. And yes, sir, welcome.
Mayor, council members, my name is Harry McClanahan, and I live at 7200 York. One of my takeaways from following city council meetings is that none of you underestimates the importance of trust to your policy-making success. I'd even go so far as to describe trust building as one of this body's core values. Consciously focusing on removing ambiguity from your public discourse can make you even more effective, because those least trusting among us tend to assume the worst interpretation of our motives when we don't state our intentions unequivocally. One of the best ways to mitigate this kind of mistrust is to avoid ambiguous word choice, especially when it comes to potentially divisive issues. Equity is my favorite example. No need to search the archive to figure out whether or not this body supports equity, right? Here's the problem, though. As I speak, two contradictory definitions of equity are very much in play. According to the Oxford American Dictionary, the definition of equity is fair and reasonable, treating everyone in an equal way. However, according to the Minnesota Commissioner of Education's website, equity is different from equality. Equity is a principle that is based on justness and fairness, while equality demands everyone be treated at the same level. Both sources are reliable, and I'm not here to promote one over the other, just to point out that equity is ambiguous. I'm faced with two credible sources. One is telling me people must be treated equally. The other is telling me they must not. This plays out at the Supreme Court nearly every session, often over college admissions policies. What's important is that policies based on one of these definitions will be drastically different from policies based on the other. Because equity is ambiguous, it's not surprising that when skeptics hear the term, they assume the speaker is either equivocating or coming from a worldview contrary to their own. In other words, as listeners, they shut down. You can minimize this communications challenge by telling them which definition you endorse and by using precise language when talking about equity-related issues. You start every meeting, you just did, pledging liberty and justice for all. Dr. King pointed out that we will overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. No one would recommend replacing justice with equity in either of those statements, because justice is exactly the right word, and because justice, unlike equity, is unambiguous. The phrase words matter has become so overused it's borderline trite, but the thing is, they actually do. Once again, it's all pretty simple, except when it's not. Thanks for listening, and good luck.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. McClanahan. Enjoyed your wisdom this week and this meeting and last meeting as well. Thanks for being here. Other members of our community wish to address the council on matters of concern to them?
Andy Brown, 5512 Park Place in Edina. My concern is the number of density and quantity of density proposals coming towards the council and local government vis-a-vis what we're doing regarding transportation and transit and the cost of those. We don't have a passenger rail line. We have very, very limited Metro Transit bus service. In fact, we've lost a lot of those lines to begin with. And there's no plan that I know of for a third lane on Highway 62. So I would really like the council as a whole to really look and think hard regarding density and our location. Part of the reason why people like to come to Edina and pay the rates that they do to live here is location and ease of ability to get to other places. And it seems to me that that's going to get more and more impacted if we don't take that seriously and look at the costing and where it goes and have that question in our mind every time we get a proposal for increased density. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Good evening.
Hi, Dave Frankel, 4510 Lakeview Drive. You've received emails from me on this topic, several of them actually. Ironically, a couple weeks ago, I was at a tech conference in San Diego. If you're familiar with San Diego, it's the largest naval base in the United States. It's home of the U.S. Navy SEALs, the Navy's Top Gun program, and right now there's 3 aircraft carriers in San Diego Harbor. I don't have to tell you the U.S. military values the U.S. flag. It runs a common thread through all armed forces. When the governor of Minnesota asks government buildings to lower their flags in honor this past weekend of the fallen firefighters memorial, no public building in Edina bothered to lower their flags. I went around to other communities, Richfield, St. Louis Park, and their flags were lowered as asked by Governor Walz. I don't know what the issue is here in the city of Edina, but my proposal, suggestion would be that there be a primary person who works for the city of Edina or a volunteer that is responsible for lowering the U.S. flags when Governor Walz suggests that. And I suggest there be a secondary person in case the primary is not available. It's ridiculous that we can't lower our flags when the governor asks us to do it. It's not done because he wants to do it. There's a solid reasoning behind it. The other issue is not clear what's going on outside here on Eden and Wilson Road. That whole development there, Mason Green, the traffic circles, has been a major inconvenience for residents in Edina. When these developments transpire, they should not interfere with the quality of life of Edina residents. It's been 2 years of road closures, construction, and now I'm not quite sure what's going on with temporary road signs on Wilson Road. Did somebody discover there's no parking signs east of Highway 100 on Eden or Wilson Road? Yet there's virtually very little parking overflow for Mason Green and for the new Starling restaurant. So they're parking on Wilson Road. That's a major thoroughfare for Edina Public School buses, and there's no way 2 buses can get through that street when they park on one side. They can legally right now park on both sides, which can make it very difficult for a bus to even get through there. I don't understand how Maison Green and this new restaurant were allowed to be developed with limited parking. And they even showed parking on their website to include the city's parking lot right outside here, which evidently was recently just changed. Does anybody have any oversight of what the Starling restaurant is telling its customers where they can park? The office building down the street is not happy. They're using that as overflow. They're also not happy. They're parking right up to their driveway, which not only is blind, but makes it difficult for trucks to get in there. This whole area, I'm an avid biker, this whole area is disastrous for biking. And it's all been redeveloped, new traffic circles, new streets, and it's dangerous. You know, I sent you an article from American Bicycle Association. Edina is rated a bronze city to bike in. Minneapolis is gold, and St. Louis Park is a silver. We talk a lot about making biking accessible in Edina, but talk doesn't get things done, and that's exactly what's happening here. Urban biking in general is dangerous. The only way to make it safer is to make bike lanes that are protected, and if you don't know what that means, look it up, and Edina has none of it. We have off-road, but we don't have on-road protected biking. Legally, bikes can bicycle on any road except for freeways. In Edina, we're saying bikers go on the sidewalks. That doesn't work. It doesn't work for adults.
Mr. Frankel, I need to have you wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to address the council on a matter of concern to them? All right, let's turn to Director Benarott. Nobody? All right. Our practice is to, you've heard folks come with concerns tonight, and we had people at our prior meeting, if they had concerns that we wanted to address, we usually have a follow-up on that following Friday after a council meeting. We post things on the city website, and on Better Together or just on the city website? City website in response to the questions that were raised or the concerns that were raised. And then we usually have the city manager do a follow-up to deal with those matters that were raised at the prior meeting as well. So I'll turn now to Manager Neal to see if he has any comments he wants to make.
Thank you, Your Honor. We had two commenters at our most previous meeting. One was Mr. McClanahan, who shared some wisdom about city government, much as he did tonight. And then a set of questions regarding trees. One was regarding does the city's tree protection ordinance apply to commercial properties? As we just learned from our work session, our tree protection ordinance does not, but there is separate code in our commercial landscaping provisions that do regulate trees and landscaping on commercial property. Second question was if an electric utility requires a heritage tree to come down, is the property owner required to replace it? If a tree is removed due to utilities during the building process, yes, the ordinance does apply and there is a replacement required. Finally, what should you do if you suspect you have a disease or infested tree? You can contact the city. We have an arborist here. You can contact a private arborist, Minnesota Department of Agriculture, Department of Natural Resources, or even Hennepin County.
Good. Any thoughts from other council members? Okay. All right, let's move on then to the consent agenda. I think that under item 6, Member Risser wanted to remove items 6A and 6O, and then I wanted to remove item 6J for a little bit of discussion before we vote on that matter. So I'm going to turn first to the item of 6A. Well, let's deal with this. Let's do it this way. With the exception of items 6A, J, and O, is there a motion to approve the balance of the items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Member Jackson moves, Member Pierce seconds the motion that we adopt all the items on the consent agenda with the exception of items 6A, J, and O. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the motion as stated say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Now let's go back then to item 6A, which are the minutes, and I think Member Risser wanted to, make a correction or a suggestion on a correction on some of the minutes.
Yes, thank you. And resident Janie Weston did come to council And she, if you watch her statement around 8 minutes in, she says the tree ordinance is not limited to just residential properties. It says that it includes subdivisions. The only exception is parkland. And if you read the ordinance, the tree protection ordinance, that is what it says. And so it includes everything except parkland. Okay, and we talked about this in the work session. This is my reading of it. I understand that when the ordinance was written, the intent was not to say that, but that is the language in the ordinance. Other cities who have tree protection ordinances require protection for commercial land, single-family housing, multifamily housing, and the way our ordinance is written, we do too, but we're not enforcing it that way. And there is another part of our code that deals with landscaping. I think making the connection between what that says for commercial, and it focuses on commercial property, but to draw an equivalence between that and the tree protection ordinance is confusing and ambiguous, and I really appreciate what resident Mr. McClanahan just said about ambiguity and all of that. So I wanted to make that statement. I understand there's been a suggested change of language. However, I wanted, she was very clear, the only exception is parkland. And I think that would be the best way to record it in the minutes.
But I think the minutes are recorded based on what she said, but she didn't say except parkland, so.
She specifically said, the tree ordinance is not limited to just residential properties. It says that it includes subdivisions. The only exception is parkland.
Okay.
I'm quoting her directly.
Okay, so you're making a motion to amend the minutes to reflect that language. All right, is there a second?
I'll second it so that we can have some more conversation on it.
All right, let's do that, and then we'll have conversation. We'll have a discussion. Member Agnew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to clarify, like the way that we tend to do these minutes. I'm not exactly sure about the second part. I agree with because it included subdivision with parkland as the only exception as an addition, but the additional component of she said she's heard in meetings that it does not include commercial properties, but the language did not specify that commercial properties were excluded. It just feels out of character with how we typically do these minutes.
So you're thinking that the minutes accurately characterize what she said?
I would cross out that second red line and keep it as the subdivision with parkland as the only exception, because I think we're working from this. Is that accurate?
I agree, and I would also like to add that in the original minutes that came out that were published, she was credited with saying, she was misquoted as saying the ordinance included subdivisions but not parkland or commercial property. So it completely said the opposite of what she came before council to say. And I think we need to be really careful when residents take the time to come forward and bring concerns. We need to get those concerns presented accurately. And the worst thing you can do is present those concerns in the exact opposite way that they were intended. So I don't know if, and we did hear from another resident, I think maybe a month or two ago, and I think it had to do with Concord Avenue and the sidewalks, and there was frustration there that he had been misquoted. So anything we can do to make sure that when we're capturing what residents say, that we're doing it accurately, I think we need to be sure we do that, because that's also about transparency.
So, Member Agnew, walk me back through, is that the sentence that starts, she said she'd heard, you're suggesting that be stricken?
Yeah.
And Member Risser, you're comfortable with that?
It does provide context, though, because we are continuing to hear from staff that commercial is not included. So I don't know, maybe we could reach out to resident Weston and see what she has to say about that.
Manager Neal?
Again, we've talked about minutes a number of times here, and remember, they are really to reflect what was actually said, not what we thought we heard or wished we would have said. I think if we're going to consult an outside source for what the minutes should say. It should be the actual audio videotape of the last meeting.
Yeah, I think you have it in front of you, Member Risser.
I transcribed what was said on the video, and I agree, going back to the video is the best way to go.
So does her testimony include the statement that she said she'd heard in meetings that it does not include commercial properties, but the language did not specify that commercial properties were excluded? Or is that an editorialization?
I'm not sure, but what makes me uncomfortable about that is that it presents the idea that it's only about commercial, and it's about all zoned properties except parkland. And so I think, that is lost when we start going down that. And I didn't listen that far, so I can't confirm that that's accurate.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I may clarify, yes, she did say that at the meeting. And Councilmember Risser is right that the minute was inaccurate the first time around, and it does now reflect that Park Lawn was as the only exception, as stated by Ms. Weston. The sentence that Councilmember Agnew would like to strike from the minutes does reflect what Ms. Weston did say at the meeting.
Okay. And that's, I assume that you're comfortable with that. I think we
Yes.
all are.
Thank you.
That it reflects her testimony. Okay. So we've got a set of meeting minutes in front of us for April 16, 2024 that have been amended to reflect accurately the testimony of one of our residents, Janie Weston. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes in their amended form for April 16, 2024? Member Risser?
So move.
All right. Member
Second.
Agnew? Seconds? All right. Further discussion. All those in favor of adopting the minutes in their amended form, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. And then I think I'm up next on item J. So this is a street lighting replacement for Berry Road, and I think this is going to be for Director Milner. So I was in a virtual meeting with climate mayors recently, and we were talking about in some cities where they're replacing their lighting, and in Los Angeles in particular, and in a few other cities, including Madison, when they're replacing lighting structures, they're adding in the ability to, in some appropriate places, to do EV charging right on the light post. So they've got new LED lighting, they've got the new light post, a new light standard, and you have the ability, and depending on where it is, what kind of a street it's on, of being able to charge your EV right on that lamp post. And I'm wondering if we've given that any consideration in this process that we are going about of replacing some of our LED lighting all over town.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. We have not considered that. It's an interesting idea. I think I can think of many different things we got to think about and figure out first before we do that, including right-of-way ordinance and what it looks like. But the most important piece is we're going to the model where Excel owns all of our light poles, all of our street lights. So it really is a conversation with them on what they want to see moving forward. So great idea, and we'll continue those discussions.
In the situation where we're replacing the whole standard, the whole light post, I think it's worth thinking about, at least investigating. So,
Sure. Thanks, Mayor.
All right, I'll move the adoption of item 6J.
Second.
Got a motion and second to adopt the request to purchase street lighting replacement for Berry Road. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of item 6J, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. And then back to Member Risser for the request for purchase that was part of the consent agenda on Fire Station number 2 for potentially some larger diameter trees. And Member Risser, I'm glad you pulled this one because I was thinking about it, and I think others probably have been as well. So go ahead.
Again, all of us received, and this is from resident Janie Weston, email that was very detailed about concerns regarding the limited warranty of the, this is only for a year for all of these trees. Also, specific concerns about oaks and, the size, are they going to be able to make it? That was a concern. And, when you're transporting those trees, taproot, everything like that. And so spending $71,000 just wanting to make sure that this is, and if we could get a longer warranty, I think to make sure that the trees actually do survive, that would be a good thing.
So, thank you, Member Risser. City Forester wasn't able to attend, but he did give me some notes we can run through. The industry standard really has been 1 year on the trees. If we ask for a longer warranty, they'll charge more money because there is a risk with every time we plant a tree that a tree can die. He's been experiencing 10% or less on the larger spaded trees. So the city forester has confidence that these trees in general mostly would survive. If we plant smaller trees, the success rate actually goes down a little. So we'd expect to lose more trees. When we do the larger ones, we're losing less trees, but it kind of averages out.
And this is a company based in Houston. Are the trees local trees? Are they coming from here or?
They're Minnesota trees. Something unique that Luther's been using is extremely large tree spades. So the vendors he's going with are using a 90-inch tree spade to sever the roots every 3 years while the trees are being grown in the nursery. And that way, when the 100-inch tree spade comes to move them, the success rate goes way up because the roots have been root pruned every 3 years. So you're not damaging a bunch of roots right when you remove it to plant it. It's kind of like growing a tree in a pot, a very obviously large pot, but highly skilled labor, highly skilled equipment to achieve this process.
Thank you.
So for me, this was a question about how big a tree do we want to, how big are the trees that we want to buy? Because it struck me that we didn't have the capacity to do this ourselves, so we had to have a specialized company do it with specialized equipment. And I don't see that in the report as to the diameter, the circumference of the proposed trees that we would put in there. And in the scheme of things, does it make sense, or should we be going with smaller trees, even though they have a higher failure rate?
Yeah, so the large trees, well, Edina doesn't own a tree spade. We're not really in that line of work, so we don't have the opportunity to use our own equipment to do smaller. So we'd still be hiring a vendor. But the larger trees really make an impact right away to a commercial site. We've heard from residents on various projects that things happen and all that comes in are very, very small trees that take years and years to mature. This process really steps things up, so it feels like a mature wooded lot, not wooded, but obviously more mature trees going in immediately. So it visually looks appealing right away.
Good.
And we want to lead by example, so.
Sounds like from your explanation that they've got a higher chance at survival.
That's been his experience.
Based on the
Certainly,
methodology. Okay.
Certainly there's always tree loss. Anytime you're moving trees, there can be tree loss.
All right. And I understand the one-year warranty issue. I think that's what I've normally heard as getting over the years. So, and that prompt any questions from anybody else? Does somebody care to move the matter then? The item 6O, the request for purchase of larger diameter trees for fire station number 2.
So moved.
Second.
Member moves, Member Agnew seconds the adoption of item 6O, which is a request for purchase of larger diameter trees for fire station number 2. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the motion stated say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. That takes care of the items on the consent portion of the agenda. And we're now going to move to special recognitions and presentations. If you can hear me, ladies, come on in.
Yes, I can.
Yeah. We have a coach with us too. Is Katie Offit here? Come on in. Just stand in the center here. We don't have a proclamation, but I want to tell everybody about our Monday adventure at the state legislature. So our legislative delegation, led by Heather Edelson, before the House started its work, all the Edina teams that have won state championships, whether they were sports teams or debate teams or robotics teams, occupied the whole House chambers, and we had some photo opportunities. And these young women from the Edina soccer team that won the state championship were all there. And so I thought all of us, what we're trying to do, folks in the audience, is that every meeting we're going to try to have one of our state championship teams here to recognize them, so that beyond getting recognized in their own homes and their neighborhoods and at school themselves, they get to be on local access television, and people at home get to see all of you and kind of applaud you as well. So we're going to give you a little ovation here. for winning the state tournament. And I don't know if any, Coach, I take it Coach Offit is not here sitting in the back anywhere. And did she assign any of you to speak on behalf of the team, or is it, we have captains here? Oh, yeah, I see. And if you want to get in front of a microphone, that would be the best thing to do. You just, if you have anything you want to tell us about your experience, and then I'd like to have you all give your names too, please.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us. We're really proud of our team this year, and we wouldn't be able to do it without the great Edina Soccer Association that we have at Edina, and Coach Katie Offit, and my fellow captains, Ashley Turk, and then Disha Roy and Izzy Engel, who can't be here. But thank you again for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. This team is obviously something special. We were undefeated this year. Took a lot of hard work, and so we're just really thankful for how it turned out and everything. So.
All right, well, we're going to take a photo too, and I think I'm going to get the whole council up there with you because it's such a great opportunity here.
Do they want to say their names first?
Yeah, and I was going to have them do that when they turned around. I think when we, so you can tell the audience who you are when we face them. I think that'll be better, even though we won't have a microphone.
Ashley Turk, Grace Polidal, Ainsley Grace.
Hold on, ladies, we're going to back here. We can take a picture back here, and then, then we'll have you give your name for the roll. Yeah, why don't we do it now? Start at the end there.
Hi, I'm Eleni McGuire. I'm Mia Crosby. I'm Ellie Doskach.
I'm Grace Plidel.
I'm Lillian Sexton.
I'm Ashley Turk.
I'm Ainsley Graves.
All right, now let's get really skinny. Couple more.
These are really treasures. Now, you want to explain what they are again?
They're car coasters.
Car coasters.
Oh.
With the city logo on it. So
Thank you.
You guys can pass them on out.
Thank you so much for having us.
Okay. We've got a few proclamations we're going to do in this portion of the agenda as well. And the first proclamation we're going to read is dealing with transportation, and it's the Transportation Commission's 20th anniversary. Hard to believe. And Andrew Scipione is here, and is Andy Lewis here too? Yes. Yeah, there he is back there, who serves with me on the tab over at the Met Council. And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas on April 16, 2002, the City of Edina established a local traffic task force to provide criteria for analyzing traffic on local roadways and institute a toolbox to creatively mitigate traffic issues such as speed and volume as they pertain to local streets. And whereas on July 15, 2003, the City of Edina established the Edina Transportation Commission to advise City Council on matters related to the operation of the local street system with respect to traffic volumes, congestion, and functional classification. And whereas in the past 20 years, the Edina Transportation Commission has achieved the following: participated in the development of the city's comprehensive bicycle transportation plan, the active routes to school plan, the living streets plan, the pedestrian and bicycle master plan, and the transportation chapter of the 2018 comprehensive plan. Supported efforts to improve the city's network of non-motorized transportation facilities to ensure that the needs of all users in all modes are accommodated, and provided community perspective and recommendations on traffic safety requests, commented on projects funded by the Pedestrian and Cyclist Safety Fund, led community educational campaigns, supported the Clover Ride Circulator bus service, participated in community events such as Open Streets and Bike to Work Day. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Edina does hereby recognize the achievement of the Commission's many members in 20 years of work to promote safety and mobility for all modes of transportation in the City of Edina. We reaffirm the City's commitment to providing and maintaining transportation facilities that meet mobility needs in an efficient, effective, and safe manner. Is there a motion to adopt the proclamation as read?
So moved.
Member Jackson moves.
Second.
Member Agnew seconds the adoption of the proclamation celebrating Edina Transportation Commission's 20th anniversary. All those in favor of adoption of the proclamation say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Andrew Scipione is here, and our chair, Transportation Chair Andy Lewis. You want to come up as well? Join Mr. Scipione. You may have some remarks you want to make. I'm going to walk down and hand this to the two of you, and then we're eager to hear your observations.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. It's difficult to boil 20 years of work down to one quick, brief proclamation. So I'll keep my remarks brief. I just wanted to add that there are many more routine things that the Transportation Commission does, such as review traffic safety requests. They provide input on our roadway reconstruction projects. They provide feedback on proposed redevelopments. And they really provide a lot of helpful insight into the city's practices, policies, and operations related to transportation. It's been a privilege to serve as their staff liaison for the last 5 years. In the ETC's 20-year history, there have been 50 members, 50 regular members, and a couple dozen student members. We invited as many regular members as we could to attend tonight. At this time, I would ask any current or previous members of the Transportation Commission to please stand and be recognized. And with that, I'd like to pass it to our chair, Andy Lewis.
All right, very good. Thanks, Mr. Scipione. Welcome, Chair Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members. And first of all, I'd like to thank Staff Liaison Scipione. He keeps us in line, helps guide us, and thanks to him and staff here, we truly have them to thank for the work that we have done as a current commission and the work of the commission over the past 20 years. A few other thank yous that I wanted to recognize is certainly the chairs that have preceded me. Kirk Johnson, for one, Laurie Richmond, learned a ton from them and have really helped guide us over the course of my time on the commission. We heard from a couple of community members tonight with points of view, input, perspective on transportation, and one of the things that I've taken away in my 3 years on the commission is the importance of community members speaking to us directly, speaking to council, that input making its way to us, and how important that is to the community input process and the work that we do. So we thank all the community members who have come before us up to this point, and certainly welcome them in the future as well. And to all of the fellow commissioners, this is time spent out of their day and their busy lives, and I value that tremendously. I'm sure council does as well, and thank them for all of the time that they've spent and all of the work that they've done. And in the interest of the things that we've done up to this point, I think there's a lot more ahead of us, and we appreciate your support now and in the future. Thank you very much.
Very good. I think we're going to do a photo here. Bring everybody up.
Don't be shy.
Stand in the back.
Julie, let's have you come up front. Yep. And maybe you can come up front too. Sorry. Let's not be offended. We're in the front row. All right, and let's wrap around a little bit so we get a little skinnier here. Yes, thank you. Carolyn, you can come forward too. You guys scooch in. Let's make a window. You pop out a little bit. There we go. All right, okay. That's it. All right. Big smiles. Couple more. I want to get one with my phone too. All right. Okay, thanks so much.
All right, our next proclamation is National Police Week, designating that week, the week of May 12th through the 18th, 2024, as National Police Week. This is something we've done for probably close to a decade now, and it's really an important proclamation. And the flag raising ceremony that we do is really, I think, an important part of what we do every year in Edina, I think, in terms of not only recognizing the first responders that serve us, but also having a chance to visit with them a little bit and make sure they get celebrated. And also for our residents, I think it's so good for them to know that all of our police and fire are so well appreciated. And so the proclamation for National Police Week reads as follows. Whereas the week of May 12th to the 18th, 2024 is National Police Week in the United States. And whereas there are more than 800,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Edina Police Department. And whereas nearly 44,000 assaults against law enforcement officers were reported in 2021, resulting in approximately 15,369 injuries. And whereas since the first recorded death in 1791, over 23,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice, have been killed in the line of duty. And whereas the names of those dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Memorial in Washington, D.C., and whereas 282 new names of fallen heroes are being added to the National Law Enforcement Memorial yet this spring. And whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed on the line of duty will be honored during the National Law Enforcement Officer Memorials Fund 36th Annual Candlelight Vigil to be held on May 13th, 2024. And whereas the Candlelight Vigil is part of the National Police Week, which takes place this year on May 12th through the 18th. And whereas May 15th is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families, and U.S. flags should be flown at half-staff on that day. And now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Edina, Minnesota, does hereby proclaim May 12th to the 18th, 2024 as National Police Week in the City of Edina, and calls upon the people of Edina to observe this week in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our residents and our city safe. Is there a motion to adopt the proclamation as read?
So moved.
Second.
Member Jackson moves and Member Pierce seconds the adoption of proclamation naming May 18th through the 12th through the 18th, 2024 as National Police Week. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the proclamation as read, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right, and we've got with us one of our own, Sergeant Eckstein. Thank you for being with us this evening. And Anna Eckstein is here to accept the proclamation. I'm going to bring it down to her in a minute, but I think she's got some remarks to make as well. So really pleased to have you here. Thanks for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Mayor Hovland, council members, City Manager Neal, for the proclamation. I am Anna Eckstein. I'm one of the sergeants for our Edina Police Department. During Police Week, we take time to honor the men and women in law enforcement who put their lives on the line every day to keep our community safe, as well as to remember those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. In 2024, there have been 56 line of duty deaths, including 2 that occurred in Minnesota. It is important that we remember that these officers are someone's child, brother, sister, mother, or father. This has been a difficult time for law enforcement, and there will be other new and difficult challenges that we will continue to encounter. The Edina Police Department will greet those challenges with courage, compassion, resilience, and care for our community. We are very fortunate to work for the City of Edina and with the community, and we will continue to, and we work with them well to support our officers in their efforts. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight, and we appreciate the recognition.
Thank you, Sergeant. We're going to come down and take a photo. I'm going to ask the whole council to come down.
Okay.
And then officers that are here, and then Manager Neal would like to come down as well.
I don't like smiling back.
Okay, let's step forward a little bit so I can get my taller officers in the back. Sergeant Eckstein and Mayor Hovland, let's come forward, come forward, come forward. Keep coming, keep coming. Aaron, we're buddying up. Thank you. All right, and we're as skinny as we can get. We're skinny, skinny. Okay, here we go. Yes, looking good. Keep smiling. If you're talking, you're not smiling. Here we go. Okay, a couple more with my phone. Well, I shushed him. There we go. Thank you so much.
We've got a few more items left on this portion of the agenda. One more proclamation. We're also coming up on National Public Works Week, and we're going to read a proclamation involving Public Works. I think we've got Dave Gorgon with us this evening, our Public Works Assistant Director, to accept the proclamation. The proclamation reads as follows. National Public Works Week, May 19 to the 25th, 2024. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as water, sewers, and streets, and whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Edina, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th to the 25th, 2024, as National Public Works Week in the City of Edina, and we call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Is there a motion to adopt the proclamation as read?
So moved. Second.
Member Jackson moves. Member Agnew seconds the adoption of the proclamation designating May 19 to the 25th, 2024 as National Public Works Week. All those in favor of adoption of the proclamation as read say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. And Mr. Gorgon, welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, thank you for reading and approving the proclamation. The American Public Works Association is proud to announce Advancing Quality of Life for All as this year's theme for National Public Works Week. This year's poster illustrates how public works professionals contribute to and enhance the quality of life in all the communities they proudly serve. We value this community and the role that public works and engineering professionals play in keeping it safe and functioning smoothly. For the last 64 years, National Public Works Week is designed to increase public awareness by enlightening the public about the duties, practices, and goals of your public works professionals. Thank you. Thank you for approving the proclamation declaring May 19th through 25th as National Public Works Week, and thank you for supporting our team's efforts. Thursday, May 23rd, we are celebrating this recognition by hosting our biannual open house from 4 to 7 p.m. We hope that you and the rest of the community can join us at the Public Works and Park Maintenance Facility to see some of the equipment and people that help advance the quality of life for all in Edina. Thank you.
Good. All right. Let's. I'm going to bring this proclamation down, and we're going to.
And
Okay, this is a good-looking group. Couple more. And one with the phone. Thank you.
Well, this is the first time we've had Marissa with us in a presentation capacity, and we've had some work done by the University of Minnesota and some of the students over there, and our sustainability manager, Marissa Baer, is going to lead us off in this discussion and tell us a little bit about the work that these young people have been doing for the city of Edina. So, Ms. Baer, welcome.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Again, Marissa Baer, Sustainability Manager. Part of my role here at the city is to support the implementation of the Climate Action Plan. Part of this is going to include a midpoint evaluation next year to understand if we are on track to meeting the goals that we've set in that Climate Action Plan. Specifically, are we on track to achieving a 45% emissions reduction by 2030? To set this evaluation up for success, the former Sustainability Manager, Grace Hancock, and the current Sustainability Specialist, Matthew Gabb, successfully applied for a University of Minnesota Resilient Communities Project team to complete a study to see if Edina's Climate Action Plan transportation emission reduction goals and strategies are achievable. The intention of this study is really to see what are the options, what might be possible as we think about current and future scenarios. The Resilient Communities Project, the Humphrey School of Public Affairs, and the University of Minnesota provided really great, unique access to researchers, statisticians, policy and planning experts to tackle this issue for a fraction of the cost of what a traditional consulting firm might charge. Resilient Communities Project typically costs $6,000, but with the support from the Metropolitan Council, who plans to use the work that was completed for Edina as a model across the metro area, the city of Edina only paid $3,000 for this work. Working with the Resilient Communities Project team really is building on City of Edina's robust history of engaging students in city government as we think about involvement and collaboration and creating those academic opportunities for students. The presentation you'll hear tonight and the work completed by the team here that we have is a really great example of that tradition and how we're continuing to engage our community and engage the resources we have here in the state as we think about students and the really great knowledge that they bring. I'm really excited for all of you to hear about the incredible work that they've done, so I will hand over to the Resilient Communities Project team. We have Holly, Kenton, Johnny, Greg, and Jem, and Yu Ping here tonight, as well as the advisor as part of this project in the audience to hear the presentation. So I will hand over them to do the presentation and help answer questions.
Very good. Thanks, Ms. Baer. Well, welcome, everyone. Again, I say welcome.
And good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Holly Leaf, and we're a group of master's students from the Humphrey School of Public Affairs. We're here tonight to present the results of our study. This study was developed, as Marissa said, as a partnership between the University of Minnesota and the City of Edina through the university's Resilient Communities Project. The purpose of this study was to investigate whether the City of Edina's current population density goals, as outlined in the city's Climate Action Plan, will be sufficient to meet the transportation targets also set forth in that plan. We were concerned with the first three goals in the transportation and land use section of the Climate Action Plan. The first goal sets a target for citywide reduction in vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, of 7% by 2030. The second goal sets a target to double public transit commuter ridership from 3.3% to 6.6%. And the third goal is to increase average population per developed acre in the city by 4%. So why does this matter? We investigated this topic because the city has committed in the Climate Action Plan to reducing greenhouse gas emissions from 2019 numbers by 45% by 2030. Since transportation accounted for just over 40% of those emissions, it becomes clear that reducing the amount that people drive and shifting toward a greater usage of sustainable transportation options like public transit, bicycle, and walking are crucial for Edina to meet its climate goals. 3 research questions were defined for this study. First, we had to ask ourselves about the underlying assumption of this project. Is density the right approach? Which is to say, can the City of Edina expect to see less driving and a shift to sustainable transportation options just through an increase in population density? Second, we asked, which approaches to density are most effective in Edina? To answer this, we explored a variety of zoning scenarios to determine what density strategies would be most impactful. Finally, we asked what policy actions are needed to support our recommended zoning strategies and maximize the sustainability benefits of any added density. A few key conclusions emerged. First, while we found that density does matter, it became apparent that the existing density target of 4% would not be sufficient to meet the VMT reduction target nor the transit ridership target. Additionally, we consistently saw that targeted density strategies around specific nodes and corridors perform better than blanket citywide density increases. We also concluded that there are a number of policy actions that the city can take to maximize the benefits of added density. Finally, we learned that density is about more than just transportation. An increase in density has other benefits, such as energy efficiency, that further reduce greenhouse gas emissions. With these in mind, I will hand it over to group mates Kenton and Johnny to discuss our recommendations for zoning strategies as well as policy interventions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. My name is Kenton, and I'll be explaining our zoning scenario analysis. Our zoning scenario analysis aims to answer the research question, which approaches to density are the most effective? Using Urban Footprint, a software also used by the Metropolitan Council, we were able to assess the potential effects of denser zoning down to the parcel level. Urban Footprint provided data on 4 key metrics for our analysis: population density and dwelling units per acre, vehicle miles traveled per capita, greenhouse gas emissions per capita, and public transit mode share. We explored both city-wide and targeted density strategies, measuring their impact on VMT, GHG emissions, and transit usage for every percentage increase in density, using an impact score formula we developed. 5 main approaches to zoning scenarios were explored. The base scenario reflects zoning and land use under existing conditions, serving as a baseline for comparison. The citywide density scenarios involved increasing allowable density across all parcels in the city, but were found to be the least effective strategy. We also investigated 3 targeted approaches to increase in density, including in and near areas of change as outlined in Edina's 2040 comprehensive plan, around sustainable transportation including public transit routes and pedestrian/bicycle facilities, and near central destinations like schools, employment hubs, healthcare facilities, and parks. Subsequently, using the impact score formula, we identified the most effective of these strategies and developed 3 recommended scenarios. The basic scenario represents the minimum needed to advance Edina's climate action plan goals. This targeted strategy allows for more intensive development within designated areas of change and along the upcoming Metro E-Line transit corridor. In this table, you can see the estimated changes in density, VMT, GHG emissions, and transit usage based on this scenario. However, it's worth noting that these numbers assume a full build-out to maximum allowable density, a process that will take decades if not generations and depends on decisions made by developers, property owners, Edina's Planning Commission, and Edina's City Council. The enhanced scenario builds upon the basic scenario by incorporating 2 additional zoning strategies. Firstly, it allows for increased density not only within the areas of change, but also in the areas surrounding them within 500 feet. Secondly, it introduces a second transit corridor, envisioned as a reimagined Metro Transit Route 46, spanning east to west along 50th Street, Vernon Avenue, and Lincoln Drive, connecting Edina to the future Opus Green Line station in Minnetonka. Notably, this scenario is the first to meet the state of Minnesota's goal of reducing VMT per capita by 20% by 2050. The preferred scenario is our final and most recommended scenario. It builds upon the enhanced scenario by increasing density along the regional bicycle transportation network and targeting development around major healthcare facilities, which serve as significant employers in Edina. This scenario achieved the most significant reductions in VMT per capita and GHG per capita, making it the most effective approach for achieving Edina's climate action plan goals. It's worth noting that even with this comprehensive scenario, we did not propose any changes to zoning designations for well over half of the city or the majority of the residential parcels. Now I'll pass the floor to Johnny to delve into some of our policy recommendations aimed at helping Edina to achieve its Climate Action Plan goals.
Thank you, Kenton. We have developed a series of recommendations for the city to consider as it engages in future planning efforts. These are broken down into amendments to the Climate Action Plan itself, as well as policy recommendations concerned with land use, built form, and transportation. Our full report outlines 18 total policy recommendations, so in the interest of time, I will only be mentioning one or two from each of the categories. First, the Climate Action Plan itself. Our fundamental recommendation here is that the city bring its density and population goals into alignment. Both Edina's comprehensive plan and other regional plans project approximately 15% population growth from current levels, achieving a population of 60,000 by 2030. Yet the Climate Action Plan projects a residential density increase of just 4%, a goal that is incompatible both with these other planning efforts and with the results of our analysis. We recommend increasing this density target to align with the city's transportation goals. We also recommend that Edina consider setting and addressing a goal for active transportation modes, such as walking and biking, since there is currently no such goal in the CAP. Next, we make several recommendations for Edina's land use policy. It's well established that carbon emissions are inextricably tied to land use, and through reforming the way in which land can be developed, Edina can meaningfully make progress on its climate goals. One recommendation that we believe Edina should consider is to designate density minimums in the city's highest priority development corridors and nodes, which have the highest access to transit service. These density floors would complement existing density ceilings, helping to ensure that the areas that Edina has already chosen to focus on developing can deliver their maximum benefit toward the city's climate and transportation goals. This is also aligned with our finding that the most effective strategies to achieve lower VMT and greater transit ridership involve targeted density increases around key nodes and corridors. Next, we have our built form recommendations. There are many restrictions on built form that currently hold back Edina's ability to reach its climate goals. We recommend changes to these guidelines that enhance flexibility for new development, bringing about a greater variety of housing options in the community. One specific recommendation is that new multi-unit construction should only be required to abide by the existing regulations on impervious surface coverage, rather than the more restrictive requirements on building coverage. Impervious surfaces are those that are built upon and do not allow water to percolate into the soil. This change would allow for more development capacity and flexibility while ensuring there is no loss to green space or adverse effects on stormwater runoff. Finally, we have our transportation policy recommendations. Edina's climate goals are not achievable with land use and built form changes alone. Updates to city transportation policy are necessary as well. To that end, one of our recommendations is that Edina update its travel demand management policy with data-driven, points-based standards. Clear standards starting at the beginning of the development process would ensure a greater chance at meaningful mode shift and reduce the need for subjectivity in staff approval. These are just a handful of the policy recommendations that can be found in our full report, each of which is aligned with specific transportation and land use goals in the Climate Action Plan. At this time, we want to thank each of you for your attention, and our entire team is available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that. Let me turn now to my colleagues here to see if anybody has any questions or comments relative to the, Member Urser, go ahead.
We will be getting the full report, right? Okay. And the other question I had is, you were nodding, so I take that as a yes. Yes. Okay.
Yes, the full report's just going into a design document, so once that design is completed, it'll be shared with council as well as posted online for anyone to read.
Okay. And with the transportation components, when you were doing your analysis, did you take into account there are different school districts in Edina, and there are some kids who are going to Richfield, and actually a lot of students, and the need to get transportation networks in so that they can go safely from Edina to Richfield?
Sure. Our analysis with regard to potential zoning strategies that involved upzoning around schools assumed that that it would be more beneficial to locate more homes in proximity to schools to reduce the overall amount of transportation needed to be provided for those students. we did not account for the fact that students may travel out of the city.
I also just want to say that for that school scenario, that was not a very effective scenario when we ran the numbers. So that is why it's not included in any of our 3 recommended final scenarios for in terms of reducing VMT, greenhouse gases, and increasing ridership.
Jackson.
Yes, thank you. So I know you put a lot of work into this, and I just want to say I'm really disappointed that we didn't get the report before your presentation. I think your presentation raised a lot of issues that were interesting, and I would have liked to have had that so that I have more informed questions for you. It was really difficult, based on the handout you sent, to have any idea what was actually in the report. So I'm very frustrated. One of the paradoxes of looking at reducing vehicle miles traveled is that when we bring in more people, we'll have more vehicle miles traveled. Did you guys, I mean, our climate action plan actually talks about just reducing vehicle miles traveled. You guys looked at per capita. Can you tell me a little bit about how you decided to, I mean, it makes more sense to do it per capita, but tell me a little bit about your analysis on that, please.
Yeah, that was a decision we made very early in the process, along with the sustainability specialist, Matthew Gabb, from the city of Edina. And to your point, yeah, we found that if we wanted to analyze any potential benefits of density in terms of VMT, it's counterproductive to look at citywide VMT. And what we're really talking about is how much each person in Edina is driving. So that was the more important metric. And I believe in our recommendations, we recommend amending the cap to reflect that.
Okay. And another question I have, oh, did you want to follow up on that?
It's important to realize that if people don't live in Edina, that they'll live elsewhere within the region. So they're still doing the VMT throughout the region. And additionally, the state of Minnesota, with their 20% reduction goal, it is per capita. So that change would make Edina's climate action plan align with the state of Minnesota's climate action framework.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad in your presentation you talked about the time frame. That was one of the things, like, it is going to take generations to develop when we're dependent on the private sector. So tell me a little bit about how you look at that, because we've got goals for 2030, and a lot of what the analysis that was in the thing was about stuff that's going to take decades to do. Tell me a little bit about how do we look at that? What kind of tools did you use to look at it, and what kind of tools can we use to consider, how do we do this? The planet's warming rapidly. This is decades of work to do. How do we reconcile that, and what kind of tools can we use to think about that?
Thank you. That's a great question, and we also had to make decisions about the scope of our analysis, and that kind of market uptake rate is something that would have been a little bit too intensive to evaluate for every single one of the scenarios that we looked at. But it is absolutely a great question, and the question remains, how do we increase this in the short term? One of the things, so Metro Transit has density guidelines by which they choose to implement new transit service. And if you'll recall, in one of our scenarios, we had an extended Route 46, which currently terminates basically right outside of City Hall. But if the city were to densify that corridor along Vernon and 50th and all the way to the city limit toward Opus Station, where the Green Line extension is going to have a station, then that would, I think, be a really, making those zoning changes and showing Metro Transit and the Metropolitan Council that that's something that the city is committed to. I think would be really instrumental in getting that service reinstated. And in general, it's pretty intuitive, but our analysis really confirmed in a big way that the level of transit service that's provided within the city has a huge impact on vehicle miles traveled and on transit ridership. So encouraging that service as well as encouraging frequent service along the E line once that opens next year. Those are things that Edina can do in the short term.
So this proposed line 46, I've never traveled on the 46 when it was here. Would it connect Opus with the Orange line or the E line? Okay. Go ahead and come up to the microphone and so people know.
As the person who took the Route 46 here, so Route 46 currently exists going from 46th Street Station, which is on the blue line, which is one stop away from the Minnehaha Falls. Okay. It goes through 46th Street and connects with, at the station, it connects with the A line. And then as it goes through Minneapolis, it connects with the C and the D line. And then at 46 and 35, it connects with the Orange line, which is also what I took the Orange line down, and then I went on the 46 to get here. And so the 46 continues going down a bit southward to 50th, and it currently terminates just a couple more stops down there in the Grandview neighborhood. It's important to note that this used to extend all the way through Edina, down Vernon Avenue and Lincoln Drive. Like we have assets to show exactly where even the bus stops were exactly in 2019. So we know it used to run, and it was most likely a COVID-related cut. But then it could also connect to the Green Line. So this route could potentially connect to the green, the blue, the orange, and a bunch of the fast ABRT lines.
And does your report talk about sort of what your expectation when you talked with Metro Transit, what would trigger them to reopen the 46?
So we didn't specifically talk with Metro Transit. That was kind of a little bit outside of our scope. We recommend that the city of Edina work with partners such as maybe Minnetonka and the city of Minneapolis to do that. But one way to do that is increasing density along the, I got it. Along in the area, so I'm just going to give you the metrics that Metro Transit uses. So the density is based off of what type of classification you are, whether you're urban center, urban, suburban, or a suburban edge. Edina is currently classified as an urban, and so if you wanted to increase density, wanted to increase service to try and get some type of local bus routes on the high frequency network, so it's going to be like the current 3 or the 4. You'll need around 10 dwelling units per acre within a quarter mile along the route. If you wanted to get something like the E line, which is arterial BRT, you want to aim for right around 15 dwelling units. And in our scenario that we included, we ended up averaging within Edina 19 dwelling units per acre within a quarter mile of those routes. So that would meet both of those targets.
Okay, thank you. And then my final question is, you've got 16 recommendations on your form. When we get the report, will each of those have an analysis that comes with it? Because I was like, tell me more, and I don't understand what this sentence means.
Yes, there's a complete analysis of each of the policy recommendations along with the transportation and land use actions within the goals that it aligns itself with.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much.
Member Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Nice job. Thanks for the thoroughness in your analysis. I definitely appreciate the way you've laid this out. I think there's information here that we should be able to use to inform maybe our approach as we look at our comprehensive plan coming up in a few years. And so there are two questions I had. One, the density models that you showed, the way our comprehensive plan, and you talked about this, one of the tenets of it was that density could be absorbed best in the southeast quadrant. So that's where the majority of the density is. And then you had your basic, enhanced, and your optimal. And your optimal has density in West Edina. And so my questions are related to that. But if you could talk about in either the enhanced or the optimal when that's Vernon Avenue where you've drawn the circles and your statement of within 500 feet of a bicycle path. Can you just describe what that might look like as you're traversing down Vernon? So yeah, just hypothetically, if I'm riding my bike or driving down the new Vernon that has density, what does that look like?
So we go over a complete methodology in the full report, and again, apologies for not having that. It was a rush at the end of the semester.
No worries.
So in terms of along the regional bicycle transportation network, all we did in terms of increasing density is within the 500 feet, changing single-family housing into duplexes. So this is not apartments. This is not even triplexes. And so, I mean, if you think about it, if one parcel decided to have, let's say, some townhomes, that would be a nice entryway for home ownership. A lot of other parcels would stay exactly the same because they stay single family. So that's for the regional bicycle transportation network, which goes into the western Edina. And then to your point about Vernon Avenue, within the stops, within 500 feet, we try to do mixed use, kind of like creating. So let's say on the corner, there's going to be first level retail on each side. So you'll have a coffee shop, maybe a barber, maybe like one of those small Targets. So people in the neighborhood could walk and get their essentials. Mm-hmm. And then on top, there's going to be residential apartments. And besides that little commercial right around that stop, it's only duplexes upzoning. And of course, so we try to go with something knowing the existing land use of Edina, not trying to go too far out, but something that would make a meaningful impact and that Edina could run with. Yeah.
Good. No, thank you. And so related to that, as you went through your recommended policy actions, I think you did a nice job of kind of summarizing the land use and the built form, because we struggle with some of those dichotomies today. And so my question as we think about increasing density, do you have any findings on how you might address privacy issues? Because what you're essentially doing is putting more people that, at least on the west side, are probably living R1 single family. And now we're going to increase the density. We actually have something on the agenda tonight that is also in that vein. So do you have anything in there, any recommendations or how cities should think about privacy as you increase density, especially in places that are single-family R1 zone today?
Though privacy is not directly addressed, one of the complete recommendations is that when conducting corridor-based zoning, perhaps say along just Vernon or along France, that the corridor that be analyzed not just be the street frontage that faces that faces France or Vernon, but also encompass the abutting lot on the backside of the street.
Okay.
So that way, any change in density would be accommodated within that sort of abutting property, and you have a much greater right-of-way to balance privacy concerns when you're not just considering rear setbacks, but you have the width of the street plus the front setbacks on the parallel roads to absorb and sort of graduate that height as it comes down. So you're not going to see large multifamily buildings that back right up to single-family homes.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
Member Agnew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for the amazing presentation and for all the work that went into this. I know that it's a lot, and especially balancing that with everything that you have going on as students. I commend you on the efforts and coming together here tonight. So thank you again for the presentation. Okay, so one of the roles that we have, right, as city council members is on one side thinking about the policy and the tactical implications of these things. So I really like how you've broken it down into those recommendations, but I'm also thinking through the other part of change that needs to happen across the city. And so part of that is getting buy-in and some of those cultural changes that need to happen. So one of the questions is very specifically around, do you have any ideas or did you think about how do we change the culture around, riding buses? And I was specifically working on the Cahill District Plan, which I see in your area is, in the optimal kind of that lower, the industrial area is primarily where that is. And we had some conversations because that was an area that bus service had drastically reduced in. And the feedback we got, well, increase demand, and then we'll add back the bus stops. And you get into one of those like chicken and an egg kind of situations. And so how do you, short of having the 15 or the 19 units within the radius of the bus stop, what are some of the other ways that we can encourage people to adopt bus ridership across the city?
Do you have something to say? Okay. One of the recommendations that concerns an update to the travel demand management policy is that it be made more, it be made an eligible mitigation strategy that that unlimited use Metro Transit passes be provided to residents of new multifamily construction. Or likewise, that an employer who participates in the regional Metro Pass program also be given credit for participating in that program. So just reducing the friction by which you pay or even have access to a transit card in the first place.
Great question, and one thing that didn't make it into our presentation, but that is included in the report, we developed a transportation decision-making framework kind of at the level of the individual, so trying to move away from the eye-in-the-sky policy and look at how do individuals make transportation-related trips or transportation-related decisions. And within that section, we do acknowledge that a lot of that kind of softer side of things in terms of changing people's attitudes towards certain realms of transportation, be it cycling, be it public transportation, that really does require different interventions than, say, what would be included in a comprehensive plan or a climate action plan. What we really focus on in that particular portion is that the first question that comes to mind when determining the feasibility of a mode is, can I get from my origin to my destination in a reasonable amount of time? And so we feel, at least in our recommendations, that that needs to be addressed first, that without that part of the equation satisfied, then it doesn't really matter what the general zeitgeist is around different modes of transportation. Once that is satisfied, though, once you increase access via different modes so that those modes are feasible, I think that gets into another completely different thing. I think transportation demand management is a big part of that, be it incentives on the employer side, incentives from the city. I know Edina has an e-bike rebate program. I think that's a big step towards just getting more people on bikes. But again, I think we've really separated what we would consider those more policy-oriented interventions from the softer interventions, which we felt were a bit outside of the scope. But that being said, I think it is incredibly important to consider, but only once those modes are feasible. Because I think without being able to complete a trip feasibly using these sustainable modes, that it's almost putting the cart before the horse to try to change the public's opinion about a transportation mode if they don't even have the opportunity to utilize it effectively.
Thank you. And that kind of even like segues into the next question that I had, which was around, it felt like some of the initial conversation was bus. But did you look at or consider any alternative modes of transportation, thinking even like, hyper-local rail within Edina? Was that a part of your analysis?
No, that was not part of our analysis, but like I mentioned before, we see a really, really strong relationship between the level of transit service that's available within a community and VMT and transit ridership and the amount that people choose to use those services. So I do think that, bus is kind of the name of the game right now, given that, the Green Line extension is bypassing Edina. However, I do think there's a lot of reason to be very optimistic about the Metro E-Line and bus rapid transit in general. So on the D line, which opened a couple years ago, going from Brooklyn Center through Minneapolis down into Richfield, Bloomington, Mall of America. So that in the year 2023 eclipsed the 2019 ridership on the route that preceded it, the Route 5, which is really hard to believe. I mean, considering how many fewer people are making commute trips in general, much less via transit. But because that service ran frequently all day and went to destinations that people wanted to go to, and it became that viable alternative to driving for many people who might not have considered it. So to Jem's point, I think that changing the culture starts with making it a viable option. And the E-Line is going to follow that same model of frequent all-day service running between downtown Minneapolis, the University of Minnesota, and Edina and the Southdale Mall. So there will be reasons for people to take the E-Line that go far beyond just commuting to work. And I do think that the fact that Edina has that coming to this community in just a year's time or so is really exciting for that prospect.
Wonderful. Thank you. One last question, and just in the, keeping conscious of time, maybe two of you answer it. But if you were city council members in Edina and you had to select one of these recommendations to enact first, which would you choose?
I would say the E-Line corridor, because it's coming, we know it's coming, and I think transit, that's going to promote the most transit shift. Two-bus service, important limitation that we didn't have time to talk about is the software we're using, we can't add transit line, we can't increase service. So the transit services is with existing service that is inaccessible for many people. So we expect probably once the E-Line actually opens that the ridership would, transit, people taking transit is going to increase a lot in Edina.
From my perspective, one of the most meaningful changes that could be made, given the reality of development and in Edina, would be to adopt minimum height and density standards just within the areas of change to complement the existing maximum density and height standards. If the city is going to focus all of its efforts on future development just within previously identified areas of change, we need to make sure we take the absolute, or that we make the most out of that very valuable limited land, and encouraging increased vitality and density within those areas of change, most of which are served by transit, would be meaningful.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I join my colleagues in thanking you for doing this work on our behalf. It's going to be interesting to probably assign this to the Energy and Environment Commission to take a look at it, to see what we might do with it, with this information that you've gathered and these conclusions that you've reached and these recommendations that you've made. It seemed to me that so many of the assumptions on how to achieve decarbonization goals were built around transit viability and a transit strategy. So you get into that, well, what comes first, the density or the transit, and that chicken egg thing. And while I recognize that the BRT lines that have been built to date are probably the most viable part of the transit system, from a bus standpoint, it strikes me that the D line going from Brooklyn Park to the Mall of America has a distinct destination involved with the Mall of America, unlike the Southdale Mall, which isn't no slouch in terms of retail, but probably not the same. And so while the D-line ridership increased from pre-pandemic levels to 2023, I'm wondering if you were able to correlate any of that increased ridership with any increased level of density that occurred on the line.
I don't know that the reasons behind the D-Line's increase in ridership are fully understood. So my day job while I work on this project is I work as a transportation planning intern at Metro Transit, and this is just a number that I have seen presented in a very like, wow, everybody even within the agency is amazed at it, but I don't know that it's been correlated with specifically an increase in density or anything like that. What is certainly true is that it is running more frequently, more reliably, and faster than the Route 5 did before it.
And do you know if the Met Council has done any analysis of the projected increase in transit ridership based upon having BRT available on the E-line?
I think it's sort of unknown, especially because of the reality that these lines were in most cases planned initially before COVID, and one of the key drivers of demand has completely been decimated, frankly, in terms of commute riderships to downtown. So I think we will just have to wait and see.
Assuming before the D-Line, that if you wanted to go from Brooklyn Park to the Mall of America, you had to go downtown on the hub and spoke system and then go on down on another bus probably. Now you can go direct. But one of the things that kind of lingers for me in all of this, and I think we've historically thought about the idea that you're not going to have sufficient transit unless you got sufficient density, so what comes first? Is the consideration to get, that needs to be given, I think, to what transit's going to look like in a post-pandemic world. I don't really think we know the answer to that yet. I mean, we know that some of the ridership is up on places that have more of a destination sort of appeal to them, like the Mall of America. But with more people just working remote, more people just working from home, some people working hybrid where they were going to the office before, and the data that I've seen shows that now it's like 65% of the people go to the office. And so 35% are working some other way, hybrid or just not going to the office at all. And that was a big part of transit ridership. And so it just strikes me it's a lot to think about here, because people stopped taking transit here because in post-George Floyd world, they were worried about their personal security. They were worried about public health issues. I think the public health issues are gone now, but they still worry about personal security. And then I think during the pandemic, when people weren't taking the bus, they may have bought a used car, because they could then go in isolation to their work if they were going to work. And so how this is all going to shake out and how it's all going to look, I think is the story's yet to be told as we try to shape this transit system of ours in the metropolitan area for the future. So I'm really appreciative of the work that you did to help us look at it a little bit, but there's still there's a lot to think about yet, and I'm sure that you've thought about that as you've been working on this as well. So we'll look forward to seeing your full report, and thanks for being here. And thanks for doing again this work. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we've got one more item in this portion of the agenda, and this is something that feeds right into the work that University of Minnesota students did from the Humphrey School, and that is what we call active transportation, and that is moving around in a non-motorized way. Andrew Scipione's got an annual update for us on the Pedestrian and Cyclist Safety Fund activities over the past year. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Hopefully you're not sick about talking about transportation just yet. Always a pleasure to be here to keep you updated on where we're at as far as encouraging active transportation in Edina. Tonight I'm going to go over how the PACS fund was utilized in 2023, talk about the projects that were constructed, and then give you a preview of work that we're planning for this year as well as 2025. As a reminder, the Pedestrian and Cyclist Safety Fund was approved by Council in 2012 It's generated from revenue from utility franchise fees. Right now, it generates about $1.3 million a year, and that money is exclusively dedicated to improvements to our non-motorized transportation network. So that includes sidewalks, bikeways, shared use paths, transit amenities, and associated signage and pavement markings. Last year, we had just under $2.3 million available in the PACS fund. That included a significant amount of rollover from the previous year, as well as money from a federal grant that we received last year. Of that, a little over $2 million was spent on PACS items, the bulk of that on new pedestrian and bicycle facilities. As you can see here, $1.6 million was spent on new ped and bike facilities. We spent about $52,000 to maintain existing pedestrian and bicycle facilities. And then that combined with final payments for previous projects brings our total construction cost to $1.7 million. On the administrative side, professional services accounted for $160,000. This includes preliminary design for future projects, as well as transportation studies, which I'll talk about a little further in the presentation. Some miscellaneous costs, maintenance, supplies also come out of the PACS fund, about $9,000 last year. And then my salary, as well as our new sidewalk inspector, also come out of the PACS fund. So you can see there the total, just over $2 million. Just to highlight the projects that were built in 2023 through the PACS fund, in the Morningside C neighborhood project, we built a number of new sidewalks on 40th Street, Monterey Avenue, Lynn Avenue, Kipling Avenue, Grimes Avenue, Inglewood Avenue. As part of the roadway reconstruction, we also did put in a new bike boulevard along Grimes Avenue. On the Blake Road project, we put in a number of new sidewalks, bike lanes, and shared use paths from the city limits to Scriver Road. With our new sidewalk inspection program, we did a number of sidewalk rehabs near the Concord School. So you can see some pictures here of sidewalk panel replacement, as well as replacing some pedestrian curb ramps to bring them up to the current ADA standards. We also this year did a number of grinding of trip hazards, which we found is a cost-effective strategy rather than panel replacement in certain cases. We also constructed another segment of sidewalk on France Avenue between 58th and 60th. The PACS fund was used to pay for a study on Valley View Road near Valley View and Wooddale to look at the bicycle facilities. As a result of that study, as part of a scheduled overlay, we upgraded the existing shared bike facilities to buffered bike lanes between Wooddale and Brookview Avenues. The PACS fund also is contributing to the 30% design of the new Roslyn Park pedestrian bridge. Over on the west side, the PACS fund was used to build another segment of Macaulay Trail shared use path from Timber Trail to Post Lane. We built some new ped ramps and a crosswalk on Valley View Road near Cheyenne Trail and Mark Terrace. This was related to an approved traffic safety request. And then in the Cornelia neighborhood, we built a sidewalk on Claremore Drive and curb extensions on 72nd Street. This work was largely funded by a Safe Routes to School infrastructure grant. Looking ahead to this year, within the Concord neighborhood reconstruction project, we're putting in sidewalks and shared use paths on Concord Avenue, Wooddale Avenue, and 64th Street. In the Southdale B reconstruction project, we're putting in sidewalks on Heritage, Berry, and 65th Street. We're working on another segment of the France Avenue sidewalk between Fuller Street and 57th. We're also going to be replacing the existing pedestrian flasher on 70th Street in Wooddale with a more current rectangular rapid flashing beacon. Within that Cornelia project, there's one piece of that project that we didn't complete last year, and that's a shared use path that connects Oaklawn to the school. So we're going to be completing that this year. The PACS fund is also going to be used to start a preliminary design for a shared use path on Interlochen Boulevard between Blake Road and Mirror Lakes Drive. This is not only a critical gap in our pedestrian network, but it also is a key segment of our Twin Loops facility that's recommended in the Ped and Bike Master Plan. For next year, within the President's A and B neighborhood reconstruction project, we're looking at sidewalks on Washington Avenue and Monroe Avenues. As part of the Trunk Highway Vernon Avenue interchange improvements, the PACS fund will be used to pay for some new shared use paths on the bridge that crosses over Highway 100. another segment of France Avenue sidewalk, trying to close that gap before the E-line comes into service. So we're building another segment from 60th to 62nd Street. Oh, and that concludes my presentation. I'll take any questions you may have.
Yeah, questions for Mr. Scipione? Yeah, Member Risser.
Can you go back to slide 9? So you're building a shared use path on Concord?
No, sorry, the shared facility is on 64th Street, the frontage road.
Okay.
Concord Avenue and Wooddale Avenues are both sidewalks.
Thank you.
Member Jackson.
Yes, thank you. So the first is a financial question, actually, and that is, do we have franchise fees on cable bills? Yes.
Yes.
And do we?
Yes, but.
Yes, but.
Okay. They can't be used for this kind of work.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. The other one is, it seems to me that we approved some work on a study from City Hall to 50th and France. Can you tell me did I see that properly, or did I misunderstand that?
You didn't approve anything. We just submitted a project idea to the University of Minnesota's senior capstone group. So it's a study, not a graduate level like you saw tonight, just towards their end of their bachelor's segment. We submit ideas all the time, and we have groups studying it. So they did a study, and it just got wrapped up.
Okay, good. And we'll see that?
We don't usually bring that to council because it's the level of some of those aren't worthy to bring to council.
Okay,
and
gotcha.
some are, and some we actually submit again another semester to get better results. So we just use it depending on the quality of the study.
Okay. Good, because I went to a 50th in France association meeting, and they're excited about having people be able to walk down there. So I look forward to that in the future, hopefully. But this is great. Thank you so much for all the good work.
Of course, and for the sake of transparency, the utility franchise fees that contribute to the PAX fund are on customers of Excel Energy and CenterPoint Energy within Edina.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Seeing the slide that you had about panel reconstruction caused me to think about, the sidewalk inspection work that we're doing and the panel repair in some of our older neighborhoods where trees have probably uprooted panels of sidewalk. I still like the idea of thinking about using the PAX fund for that instead of having that be a special assessment on individual pieces of property. And I'm just wondering, what would the PAX fund have to look like, or the franchise fee have to look like, I guess is a better question, if we were going to roll all that activity of replacing sidewalk panels and paying for the sidewalk inspector out of the PAX fund?
Thank you for the question, Mayor. That's a good question and one that we're actively working to analyze. We have a work session scheduled for August 7th, where we're going to be bringing the sidewalk maintenance policy to council for discussion. And the sidewalk inspection program will be part of that.
Okay, all right, good. That answers my question. I guess we'll stay tuned. We'll see you in August and talk about that issue. All right, anybody else have anything on this particular report? Thanks for this report. It's always good to get it every year and see the progress we're making on building out that non-motorized system. And maybe with this active transportation money that's coming into the region, we'll be able to do a little bit more with that, some of the money that comes into our city. And then, of course, into the region is coming, I think, $25 million into the Met Council for Active Transportation. So, and that's annually. So we'll be doing some work with that too, and we'll be able to make application for some of the things that we want to do.
Yes, we are always looking for opportunities to supplement our funding with grants.
All right, very good. All right, thanks for being with us. All right, now we're going to turn to the public hearing portion of the agenda. And the first matter we have here this evening involves a request by Danae Holmes, and I see Paul Danae is in the audience this evening, and Steve Benke. And I'm going to turn to Director Teague and have him introduce the topic, and I think we're going to have the representatives from Danae talk for about 15 minutes on their proposed project over on Hankerson. They've already done 8 townhouses over there that I think were quickly occupied, and they've got another idea over there that involves potentially taking down some homes. So go ahead, Director Teague.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So this property is located on the edge of the Grandview District, north of Vernon, note here on this first graphic, the sites are currently zoned single dwelling unit, so it's 2 single-family homes. The project that the mayor mentioned is to the south. It has a PUD zoning. It's the Hankerson Townhomes. Across the street is a bank, and as you transition into the Grandview district. So the proposal is to extend this PUD district to encompass those 2 lots. Within the city's comprehensive plan, both those sites are guided for low-density residential, again, our single dwelling unit area. The site to the south is guided medium density. The comprehensive plan was revised for that project when that was approved. So the proposal is to extend that medium density designation to include these 2 sites. Here's a look at the 2 homes today. You can see the Grandview townhomes to the south. So the applicant is proposing to tear these 2 homes down and build 2 townhome style or duplex units on each lot. So it would be a total of 4 units. Here's a look down Hankerson. You can see the bank property across the street. So it's kind of a transition area from Grandview into the single dwelling unit district. The applicant did go through sketch plan. There's not a lot of changes, if at all, other than providing more detail on the units themselves. They're proposed as a single-story unit. So here's the townhomes to the south, and then the 2 duplexes that would be proposed to be single-story. The existing townhomes to the south are 33 feet tall. That was written into the PUD. The proposal here is for these units to be 25 feet tall. And another rendering, so note it's about a 10-foot height difference between the 2. One issue that came up that was suggested by Councilmember Pierce is in regard to comparing this proposal to the existing R1 zoning on the site, and how would building coverage and the mass of that building compare. So what's proposed here is a 40% building coverage for each structure. Under the existing R1 zoning, a 30% building coverage would be required. So that's the area that's highlighted in red. Essentially, the garage units for each unit would extend into that buildable area compared to the conventional R1 zoning or the existing R1 zoning. The difference being is the mass or the height of the building would be 10 feet lower. So it's kind of a trade-off, that second story versus extra building coverage. The applicant's also proposing to subdivide the property so that each unit could be sold individually. So the request requires a comprehensive plan amendment to re-guide that site to medium density residential. So that means it's a 4/5 vote of the city council, and also the rezoning to match that PUD zoning to the south and then the subdivision. This is our pyramid of discretion that we look at with these types of projects. Just a reminder that with the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance the rezoning that's proposed, the city council has complete discretion to approve or deny this project. So a case can certainly be made either way, and staff has provided the Planning Commission with options for approval and denial, and included in your packet are resolutions approving the project and denying. Primary issues that we considered with the Planning Commission is the comprehensive plan reasonable and the rezoning. The Planning Commission recommendation is for approval of this project. The vote was 6-3. So the prevailing recommendation, again, is to extend that medium density designation. We went through the kind of the comparisons for the existing R1 district to what's proposed. Again, at the 10-foot height reduction that would be required within the PUD ordinance, but they are requesting that additional impervious or building coverage from 30% to 40%. And that's consistent with the existing townhomes to the south.
Member Risser has a question for you.
Given that the existing lot sizes are over 9,000 square feet, isn't the allowable building coverage 25%, not 30?
Boy, I'd have to double check that.
I'm pretty sure it only goes up to 30 on lots that are smaller than 9,000 square feet.
But yeah, I apologize. I'll have to double check that. Maybe I have those numbers backwards. So some of the goals and policies that this project meets within the comprehensive plan, having a multifamily development are typically located on the edge of higher density areas or on more arterial roadways. Again, this is right on the edge of the Grandview district, kind of seen as that transition area between the commercial, the higher density, and the single family to the west and north. The characteristics of the units proposed here are similar to a single family home. They've been designed to be essentially that same scale and height with the adjacent properties. Parking is to the rear of the building, or the rear of the lot. They would utilize the alleys in the back. It's also providing a type of housing that we talk about we're short of in the city, and that's that missing middle housing. So missing middle is a range of house scale buildings with multiple units comparable in scale and form with detached single family homes, and that's exactly what's being proposed here. One thing I also want to mention that as part of the Grandview Development Framework and the Grandview Transportation Study, there is a connection across Vernon that is proposed sometime in the future that would provide a better access to that commercial area. An additional density would help support the retail uses in the district. The next issue is in regard to the PUD zoning. And there was a lot of discussion at Planning Commission around, is this project meeting the PUD standards? Where we talk about wanting to meet most of these criteria. So the PUD to the south was found to meet those principles, the purpose and intent. We believe that it's in an appropriate setting. Again, that transition from the commercial to the single family district. It's an efficient approach to provide that missing middle housing. The design is compatible with surrounding uses. There's really no impact on public streets and utilities. Existing roadways can support the project. Again, it does, it's an additional, that missing middle, again, the variety of housing, and we believe it's an appropriate transition. So with that, we have provided options for the City Council to consider approval and denial. Planning Commission is recommending approval on that 6-3 vote. However, the recommendation this evening is to close the public hearing, or close the in-person public hearing, keep it open until May 12th, and continue action to May 21st. And with that, I can stand for questions.
Yeah, questions for Director Teague? Member Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think you covered this, but just we would rewrite the PUD statute or ordinance to reflect these homes. So it wouldn't that in the future they could be townhomes like the 8 to the south?
Correct.
Okay. And then my second question is, with pervious surfaces, does the pervious surface ordinance cover duplexes, or is that just for single family homes in across the city?
Boy, I'm trying to remember. I don't believe it covers R2 properties.
Okay. So if we made these R2 properties, then the pervious surface requirement goes away.
Yes. In terms of comparing this to R2 standards, the lots are quite a bit smaller. For an R2 lot, we require at least 15,000 square feet, where, as Councilmember Risser mentioned, these are around 9,000.
Okay. So it's sort of uncharted territory as far as the pervious surface goes.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Member Pierce.
Actually, question to follow up with you, Member Jackson. When your question about the PUD, I think you were saying that whatever decision we make here is only affecting these two properties. Is that what you were asking?
No.
Okay.
That's what I thought you were asking.
Well, the PUD ordinance would be amended to include these designs so that it isn't extending, you know, that you could build up to the same density and height as the other 8 units. It will be written in to accommodate what's being proposed here.
So it's restricted to those height requirements.
Correct.
Yeah,
Right.
in the PUD.
Right. Yeah. So if for some reason they want to add a second story in 5 years, they can't without coming back to us. I believe
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the setbacks are all the same as the existing PUD, or they would be the same. The only difference is that height, where we would be holding it to 25 feet.
Okay, thanks for that. And then, so then 2 questions. One actually related to that. Was there any discussion about, because I interpret this as spot zoning, because we're only talking about these 2 lots. Is that fair?
I don't believe this is spot zoning.
Okay.
Because it would be matching the zoning to the south. It would be
That's fair.
extending.
Yep, that's fair. So thanks for that clarification. My question was going to be, if you pull the view of the street up, actually, not the street, the PUD map. Yeah. And so what I was alluding to is in the purple, right where you have sight. So that's the south where those townhomes are. And then where the green arrow is, those are the 2 lots that we're talking about.
Correct.
And so what I was alluding to is, was there conversation if we have a PUD that has these restrictions, was there any thought about them covering more than just those 2 properties?
These are the 2 properties that the applicant has acquired.
Yeah.
That's not to say somebody couldn't come in the future and propose something similar. Again, it would be another decision.
And if they did, that would have to come back for a comprehensive amendment. Yeah. That's what I was alluding to by using the term spot zoning, but I understand what you're describing. So thanks for that. And then my second question, you talk about missing middle, and this may be a question for the applicant. What's the target price for these?
Yeah, I'll let the applicant respond to that one.
And I'm fine to wait for that answer. Thank you.
What were the, go ahead.
I am also concerned about the narrative that's been really promoted for this project, and I'm looking at the memo from Affordable Housing Development Manager Stephanie Hawkinson, noting that the values of these 2 properties are $425,420 and $434,249, and they're on lots that are not huge. They're 9,769. If you go on the Hennepin County GIS site and you look at the prices here, we're not talking about $1.2 million houses. And if they were to remain zoned the way they are right now, with that only 25% lot coverage, I have a hard time believing that the result would be something that was 1.2 million or more. And in fact, the reality that these houses continue to exist today sort of undermines that argument. And I'm very concerned about the fact that this is removing 2 of the more affordable houses that we have in Edina, and that stock of housing is really diminishing. The other thing is, we were supposed to have a work session our last council meeting, but that did not happen. But it was all about affordable housing, and it was talking about how ownership near a bus line, and this is near a bus line, ownership near a grocery store, this is near a grocery store, these are really ideal homes to fit the goals that we're trying to reach for affordable housing, or just making it more possible to have more income diversity within Edina. And I have to ask, if these two homes, and they, are not worthy of protecting, and staff is saying, take them down, are there any houses in Edina where you wouldn't make that argument?
Well, it's a hypothetical question. We'd have to look at on a case-by-case basis, depending on the location. This is in an area that is kind of transitioning from a higher density commercial area into the single-family neighborhood. This whole block could be considered that transition zone that can be used to add a little bit more density to the area. So it's hard to say.
It's questionable, though, that if it's actually going to result in more people being housed. These are targeted towards seniors. You could have two people, maybe one person in these homes, whereas you could have a family of 4 in the 2 houses. So it's not necessarily the case that we're adding density of population of people, but we're adding another residential unit. The other thing is, I wish we had a view of the neighborhood, and maybe we'll get that with the developers' slides, but we're completely eliminating the backyard. And that is a huge difference. I think really disrupts the neighborhood character. And, I think we need to take that into account. The other thing is, when I'm looking at the memo or the report from Housing Manager Hawkinson, she references the Housing Strategy Task Force report and says that the task force also proposed a goal to consider zoning amendments that would expand housing options, such as considering zoning amendments in limited areas, such as transitional areas and activity nodes. And this is in a letter, this is in the context of just rezoning 2 parcels. Do you consider what we're being asked to do a zoning amendment?
Yes.
Okay, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, we're amending the zoning ordinance.
You're amending a PUD.
It's an ordinance amendment to the city code that regulates not only these 2 lots, but it's still part of the Hankerson PUD, but it is expanding that zoning district to include these 2 lots. So it is a zoning amendment.
It is a singular PUD that you are rezoning, or
yes,
amending, excuse me.
Correct.
Okay. And I did get a question just recently that came in about how, and we saw some really significant trees in the front yard. So the new tree ordinance is going to be applied here too, right?
Correct.
Okay.
That's one of the conditions that are outlined in the approval resolution.
And it's interesting how we don't have zoning specifically for townhouses, but we're pushing to amend our comprehensive plan for a project that will occupy much more space than the current structures. And it strikes me, you think about how careful we were with the ADUs and, setting up what we really wanted to see. And this is really setting a precedent that could happen throughout Edina. And I'm looking at townhomes on the old Burley site. Now the 2 houses that are right next to those have been sold. And I have concerns from neighbors wondering, okay, then are those houses going to be turned into townhomes? And are we likely to see this kind of development pop up and we'll get multiple requests for comprehensive plan amendments?
It's a possibility.
And staff is fine with that?
Well, we can't prevent someone from making a land use request. Ultimately, the decision rests with the city council.
Right, but you're recommending that we actually amend our comprehensive plan?
On this project, yes.
Thank you.
Bragnew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So with these lots right now, can we do anything as a city to prevent these naturally occurring affordable homes from being removed?
There's really not. There's no tool that we have that can prevent someone from going in and tearing down those homes and building a bigger one.
Okay, thank you. And then maybe the second question, and maybe this is what Member Pierce was also getting at, but I remember I don't remember the exact address, but I think this was during my time on the Planning Commission when we were looking at maybe a block or at the end of the block, a similar type approach, but in this general neighborhood. If you remember, Director T, where that was, and if you could point it out here, if you recall.
I do. It is this site right here.
Okay. And so can you remind me if we did anything to that, if anything happened?
Yeah, it was just a sketch plan request, and they did not pursue a formal application.
Okay. Because I think as I'm looking at this, I don't recall if this was listed as one of our areas of change. But where I'm going is, instead of the possibility of kind of lot by lot by lot, us kind of expanding this, does it make sense? And I don't know, I'm not proposing one way or another, but does it make sense to consider the entirety of that block within our assessment here? Or given where we're at in the process, do we need to only look at these parcels?
Yeah, with this project, we just have to look at this request. To look at this entire block, we would really need the cooperation of all the property owners, unless it's done as part of, like the Grandview District, we've never done a small area plan. You know, we've done the transportation study, we did the framework document. It seems to me in our next comprehensive plan update that we do want to study this area. And I think at that time when we do that, we would want to look at what boundaries do we want to look at. And I would think this would be a natural area that we look at, and maybe expanding that more.
Wonderful. I think we should make note of that and remember to add that to our list of possibilities. So
yeah, and I would add on the Planning Commission work plan for this year, they are looking at those areas that we want to look at for the next comprehensive plan. So that is underway.
Thank you, Member Agnew. When we approved the 8 townhouse unit project, there was an old apartment building there. And I remember one of the things that we looked at in conjunction with analyzing that potential project was, and that was influencing, as I recall, were the other duplexes, if you will, side-by-side home combinations within maybe a block of here. And do you recall that? I mean, aren't there quite a few of the other sites in the neighborhood occupied by duplexes or side-by-side homes?
Yes.
Next block over, as I
yeah,
remember.
The property across the alley here is a duplex. All the hatched properties, that indicates R2 zoning or where we have duplexes.
All duplexes?
Yep.
Okay. What were the most compelling reasons expressed by the majority of the planning commissioners in support of this project? Because it's fair to look at, you flip back, yeah, that's a good view right there. You got 2 houses that are affordable. I think they've been sold now, so to Member Agnew's point, you know, somebody could, if this wasn't approved, they could come in and build new single-family homes that were much more expensive. But there's appeal in the sort of the NOAA argument, and I think that's what I saw in, remember, or Stephanie Hawkinson's report, our affordable housing manager. She was kind of wrestling with this idea on paper of whether to support this project or not, and came down on the side of supporting it, even though she recognized that in other circumstances, these might have been houses that we might have bought, you know, and turned into something, but I think they've been sold, so. So you can kind of see both sides of this. I mean, there's a lot of this type of property in the neighborhood. I don't think there's any precedential value of approving a project like this, I mean, in the abstract, because each project has to stand on its own merits. I don't know if Attorney Kendall has a thought on that or not. I don't see where, Member Risser worries that this is going to have precedential value, and pretty soon we'll see this happening all over town. I think each project stands on its own merits, and the fact that we did something over by Jerry doesn't mean we'd necessarily do something over in some other neighborhood. That we'd be bound by the fact that we did it in the Jerry's neighborhood that would compel us to have to approve it somewhere else.
Mayor, as Mr. Teague mentioned, the council has a fair amount of discretion on rezoning requests and requests to amend the comprehensive plan. And yes, each application is processed on its own merits, so the council has to view each application on its own merits and individually. You may take into account the surrounding zoning, but it doesn't set a precedent that you have to follow on each one.
You look at that pyramid of discretion. If this happened, if there was an application some other place, we'd have that same sort of discretion we have here.
We absolutely would, yep.
The fact that we did it one place doesn't mean we have to do it someplace else.
Correct.
All right. That prompt other question. Yeah, Member Risser.
One thing I want to, and can we go back so we're looking at the two houses? We can say we can't do anything to preserve these houses at this point, but one can make the argument that the marketplace is preserving them. They're not being torn down. And if we take action, and what is being requested is very much incentivizing removing these houses, because it is allowing 40% coverage where only 25% is now allowed. And when I read, and this is just a general kind of characteristic of spot zoning, the application of zoning to a specific parcel or parcels of land within a larger zoned area when the rezoning is at odds with the city's master plan and current zoning restrictions. And I really feel like this plan is at odds with current zoning restrictions. So I don't think it is just a matter of saying we can't preserve them, they're going to be torn down. I think, they exist, they could continue to exist. But if we incentivize their destruction, they will come down.
Well, the point I was going to make, or I was trying to make, was assuming that Mr. Donnet already owns these homes, you can't preserve them. I mean, if he doesn't get this project approved, he could do something else with them that was consistent with an R1 neighborhood. Member Pierce. And I don't know whether that's true or that he owns them.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So we're not making a decision tonight. And I don't want us to be here till midnight. Yeah, however, I do think, for me, the way I'm processing this, it's a much bigger question to me than just these two properties. And so that was the reason I asked the earlier question, what market, what are we targeting for the costs or for the market price for each of these? We just saw a presentation from the University of Minnesota that talked about increasing density on the west side. And this project is exactly what one of them described as a potential way of thinking about it. And so I personally think we have to, as a city, think about how we're going to wrestle with this whole concept of medium density, if it makes sense to do it there or not. I like the fact that you talked about minimizing the height. Today, our median home value is $660,000. So when I think about attainable, affordable home, is that the target or lower than median? I don't know. But I think if we think through how we want to structure this, but big picture, not just these two lots, that to me is the hard question. And you would only be doing that work in the cycle of the comprehensive plan. We wouldn't be talking about just 2 lots. And so I'm thinking about all of that as I look at this project. So for what it's worth.
With having Member Pierce have that word, let's bring up the applicant.
Mr. Benke is virtual.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. Happy to see you. A little different position here, I guess, being remote this time. But I guess what I'm trying to do here then is just sort of touch on a lot of the things that we heard today, including those previous students and their work. But the project is adjacent to, the existing Grandview townhomes, which is kind of the big reason that drove the request for the PUD change. With it being immediately adjacent, that zoning makes more sense as a planner than creating a new zoning there as either R2 or PRD3, mainly because all of the deviations are already in the PUD document that exists for the neighboring property. Part of the reason driving this is that during the sales of those additional, of those other units, there was a lot of people stopped in and they really were asking for the townhomes at that time. Now this is during COVID, we're a little past that now. This project has taken a little while to get moving. But that hasn't changed. We're still looking for that townhome unit, that Rambler style unit, which while, it could be considered as directed at retired people, it's not exclusive at all. These units will have 4 bedrooms. You could conceivably have families in them as well. The unit price is speculated at starting in the 800s, which, a lot of people are going to go, oh, wow, that's pretty expensive. But the hard part here is that there's a lot of infrastructure rebuilding that needs to happen with any redevelopment project. And that's so true here as well. We're required to go back into the street and rebuild the sewer and water lines all the way back into the units. That is not a cheap process. That is part of what drives that sale price. The coverage, is mitigated. That additional coverage is mitigated, but there's a cost to that as well. The units are Ramblers. Ramblers, by their nature, will cover more square footage of land than a 2-story, and that's very true here as well. They're not excessively large. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you, but...
You want to introduce yourself too, please?
Yes. Mayor, council members, Paul Donne with Donne Homes.
Give us your business address too, would you, Mr. Donne?
9655 63rd Avenue North, Maple Grove.
Thank you.
I live at 6605. I won't put in Edina. I think Council Member Reiser, you had some specific questions about pricing.
Well, I mentioned prices, but I think it was Member Pierce who was asking about pricing.
Yeah, both of you had. So if you just finish the main level on this townhome, you get 1,438 square feet. And I could conceivably get a customer in there that would only want that. Most of the ones that came through the parade of homes and stuff were couples, and maybe they would only want 2 bedrooms finished, 1,438 square feet. That would dictate a price maybe starting in the 700s. I can't say for sure, and if you add the lower level, that adds another 1,149 to get a total square footage of 2,586 square feet if you finish the entire main floor and the lower level, 4 bedrooms. But I can't say that that's going to happen. Most of the homes that I do, and I'm approaching over 100 easily in the city of Edina. Most of these homes are homes that are sold to families. I would say 90% of them. And I talk to all of them. And they need 4 bedrooms. Some of them need 5. And I have 2 homes going in Edina right now. These one level could possibly only need the upper level finished, or the main level. So I wanted to address that with you. Also, the idea that the north home in the picture, the red home, that's 1,000 square feet. 1,000 square feet. It's a 2-bedroom home. They tried to sell it before I got involved, and they couldn't sell it to families. One family decided to go out and get a proposal to put a second story on the home, and it added, they had several bids, and they were all around $250,000 to add a second floor on that. So that home is compromised. And you wanted to know if homes like this are all should be kept or within the community, and what dictates that. Over the last 20 years, I've had a lot of residents who have called me and wanted to sell their home. And so I go out and I meet with them and I view the home. And I can remember probably at least 10 of those homes where I've told the homeowners, keep your home, do some remodeling on it, and sell it. It's a saleable product. And then some of them I go in, like this particular one on the north side, it's not a home that can be kept and remodeled. So I think that answers your question. The one next door is even a little more difficult because of some of the lower level and the structural members in there. A lot of times I'll go to homes, and if I do decide to buy the home, they're compromised with a lot of mold and things in the basement. So that dictates a lot of my decision if I'm going to buy the home, what the structure is really like. If it's old growth wood in the lower level and the trusses and the joists are in good shape, then I say try and remodel it and sell it, or stay here and remodel it and live here. So I think that's a couple questions that were asked of Mr. Teague, and I thought I could answer those.
Sure.
I don't think I asked those specific questions, and I do kind of want to push back on, I think I appreciate your opinion on those houses, and I feel like the number of houses that are in the $400,000 range are small in Edina, and the point I was trying to underscore is that the marketplace, dictates the prices. And what we're being asked to do is to sort of to really intervene. And the point I wanted to get across is that there could be, we don't have that many of those houses. And so what you're asking is kind of a lot. And I hear what you're saying, but I think we may be viewing this very differently.
We don't have many of those houses. We have hundreds and hundreds of them here. I've lived in this community since the early 60s. And there are many homes that are like this in the community that are there to remodel. I see them all the time.
And there are also people who are willing to move in and to put in the sweat equity and to increase the value and to stay in those houses. And in the neighborhood where I live, there are smaller houses with single car garages where you have families that are living and maintaining those houses and really taking care of them. And so I think it's just two different ways of looking at this.
I mean, I think I just stated the one home is 1,000 square feet.
And that's
it's
another,
not it's a 2-bedroom.
right, but here's the thing. Well, okay, different views, and I know a lot of people want to have really large homes, and, you know, one person's really large home is too big for other people, and there's also where, you know, I keep thinking, whatever happened to the movement for the not so big house, you know, and how do we get that going in Edina? And so I kind of want to push back on the idea that a house that is 1,000 square feet is just unacceptable and not livable, because I don't think that's necessarily true.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I remodel a lot of homes in Edina, which are dictated by the fact of how much usable and what's the condition of the home is the first thing. And this home is very difficult to remodel, where the stairways are and everything. And like I said, they had bids to do it, and the bids started to were $250,000 and up. So that doesn't make it affordable.
Thank you.
Mr. Benke, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I do. I guess, you know, speaking about it, you know, I was really interested to listen to that whole discussion from the college students, mainly because the same words that I think I've been using for, I don't know, several project submittals here with you now and things, the modest densification, you know, they used targeted density, gentle densification is another word. The key, I think, to remember here is, you know, these are 2 houses on 3 lots. A block over, there could be 3 houses on these properties. There's a way that it could be 3 lots again. These are not platted lots. They could be recombined, and there could be 3 houses here. We're asking for 1 more house of approximately 1,425 square feet, which is a modest house size. You know, we're not getting mansions here. We're not getting large houses. We're simply providing what the market is looking for. And, you know, I heard somebody ask, how do we start these changes in the area? You know, it's kind of unfortunate for us that we seem to be at the forefront of, you know, what is a coming, you know, movement, but that doesn't change the fact that, you know, we're property owners, or we have interest in properties that, you know, and this is our request currently. And the request is not a large lift by any means when you look at what the goal is. And, you know, one point here too, you know, these houses were both built in the 50s. There's a lot of talk going on today with, you know, carbon neutral, you know, reducing our carbon footprint. I think a lot of people don't realize what a change new construction brings to that metric. New houses are roughly they're 30% more efficient than a home built before 1996, I'm sorry. So houses built of this era have something that's called a HERS score, which is a method of measuring the efficiency of a structure of 130. The homes that we're currently building have a HERS score of 40 to high 40s, low 50s. What that tells you is that it's like a gas economy feature. So you're actually gaining in your carbon footprint goals by allowing new construction. And it's kind of hard to hear that, I know, because, we have these older affordable houses that people can live in. Well, but those houses aren't contributing to your climate goals that, you know, that are as spoken as everything else. You know, like I say, you know, we had other options than PUD here. And, you know, if PUD is such a no-no for the city of Edina, you know, we're trying to work within your existing zoning framework. So, you know, if this is a R2, it has other deviations that need to be met. If it's a PRD3, It has other deviations that need to be met. We chose the PUD because of the adjacent existing zoning, and it just is a cleaner way to incorporate this parcel into that neighborhood. If somebody chose to do something with that down the road, that's certainly not anything that we have on the table right now, or even considering. It's not a goal of us to continue to build townhouses in this area at this time. The trees and things, the trees are covered in the landscape plan, and yes, there are some nice trees on this lot. They're mainly confined to the perimeter, which is a good thing because it allows us to maintain them. Let's see. The biggest thing I think that we keep running into is the whole idea that even more density is sometimes requested, even by your own planning commission, that they really would have liked to have seen more density here. In the end, they ended up liking this project as it is, but that additional density comes with other costs that are going to continue to drive up the cost of housing in Edina, and mostly it's the rebuilding of the infrastructure that's required in order to accommodate that greater density. And I do think it's great that Edina is beginning to look at how they can look at the comp plan, how they can look at these small areas and try to help move the city toward those climate goals, toward those carbon goals. But in the meantime, asking a landowner to wait for those studies to be done is pretty unreasonable, I think. We really believe we've got an excellent project for that location. We think it meshes well with what's already there, and that includes the existing single families to the north and the single families and duplexes to the west. We think it's a really great transition. It does, firmly shut off any gap that existed between the bank and the existing single family. And it contributes, 1 to 2 more families to the city of Edina. And it's in an area of high walkability. And, I do think that whatever families are gonna live there are going to integrate into this neighborhood very easily with all of the services that are already existing in the area. I do think that everything that Edina does, it will just simply enhance the Grandview neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Binky. I can't remember if you answered this question that I posited earlier, but what were the most compelling reasons expressed by the majority of the planning commissioners in support of this project? I may have gotten sidetracked, or did you answer that?
I believe they felt that reducing the height, it transitions into the neighborhood. It fits that missing middle. That it seemed to really fit into the neighborhood.
Okay, all right.
One thing, if I could clarify.
Sure.
The lot coverage is 25%. So I just did some quick calculations. So these lots are about 9,700 square feet. So they would be allowed a footprint of 2,425 square feet. So you could get, figuring if it were a 2-car, somewhat smallish garage, 400 square feet. With a 2-story home, you could have 6,000 square feet of a finished single-family home on the site.
All right. This is a public hearing matter, and our director has suggested that we take testimony this evening and then leave the record open and deal with this in our next meeting. And so let's now open it up for public testimony. So if there's anyone in the audience that wishes to come forward and testify regarding this proposed project, feel free to come forward.
Andy Brown, 5512 Park Place. I'm extremely concerned about the precedent this sets, especially in regards to lot coverage. I own a smaller lot. I have a neighbor that tore that baby down, and now I've got Windsor Castle for a deck out the back. And so, Member Pierce, I know you had a lot of concerns about ADUs and the area that was may be taken up by that. Live that daily with what's going on there. Water is a huge issue in Edina. What is this developer doing for water mitigation on that? I was forced to put in brand new sewer and water line when our street was reconstructed, so I don't have a lot of sympathy for the developer about, oh, this infrastructure is so costly. There is a whole huge swath of Edina that has had to redo that underneath their ground. We even put in a water receptacle system in the boulevard that people were supposed to tie into if they wanted to, but councils previous to you decided not to force teardowns to hook into that as they were available to do so. And so water still runs freely all over the darn place. And so that threatens my house. And I'm a homeowner that has a 1947 house. But I've put money into windows. I've put money into insulation. I've used Obama-era programs to do that. I've put in new roofing. I've done everything I can possibly do to be energy conscious and energy efficient to save money in that respect. So I kind of feel offended by some of the developers' comments on what goes on with this. I understand that they are experts in their field and what they do, but that doesn't mean you should broad stroke everybody in Edina regarding what's happened. And so I feel very concerned about this because I think it's going to be a very slippery slope. I understand the need of, you know, how we manage the city and infrastructure and all this other stuff. But there's a lot of us that have already done a lot of effort into this. And then to make this PUD, I'm sorry, Mr. Teague, but you know what? Your zoning codes have made my lot almost uninhabitable with all the water, no matter what infrastructure. So I apologize if that's directed at you, but it's not been good. So I think you need to really push back on this developer. And how things go forward.
Let's not personalize things. It's not Mr. Teague's zoning code.
Well, it sometimes feels that way, Mr. Hoffland. I mean, God's honest truth. This is getting kind of ridiculous. No. So you've been out to the house. You know exactly what I'm dealing with.
But
Manager Neal, you've been out to the house. You know exactly what I'm dealing with. So I don't think that my comment is relatively unexpected regarding the situation.
Inappropriate.
So, I don't think it's inappropriate either. Inappropriate was not making those teardown houses go into a system that I paid for, sir, with my tax dollars to make our property better. You still didn't do that.
It is not Mr. Teague's zoning code.
Okay, then whose zoning code is it?
It's the city of Edina.
Okay, then who am I speaking to regarding that?
Speaking to the city council.
Okay, because that...
Talk to us, but don't pick on our staff. Your staff, too.
It is completely and utterly ridiculous. Member Risser asked an honest question about, well, then where will you say no? And you know what? For a lot of us, that really resonates. Where will you say no? And he couldn't come up with an answer. So that's what's personal about it. Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience wish to address the council on this matter?
Hello, Janie Weston, 6136 Brookview Avenue. That's my correct house number. Anyways, thank you for correcting those minutes from the previous meeting. I have a number of thoughts on this project. I don't particularly have anything against Mr. Donnet. I watched him build a house across the street from me. First rate, good quality, did the work well. However, in this case, I think it's completely inappropriate to be asking for a PUD on something that this is not appropriate for. How PUD is supposed to be done is you rezone to PUD first, and you have in mind that there's some city gives, the builder gets, there's some give and take, usually it's mixed use. Where is the public good here? coming out of this. This is a personal request from a builder to add to an already existing PUD, and that's not how PUDs are supposed to be used, period. The better, more appropriate way to have a builder in this circumstance be making a request to do what they want to do is ask to have it rezoned to an R2, and then deal with the setback and the size of the duplex issues, or perhaps put a triplex on it as an R2 lot, but don't add to the PUD. That is not how PUD is supposed to be used, and I did a lot of research on this and gave you all some good information on this a year and a half, 2 years ago. So please remember that. Some other things. I live in a house built on the same floor plan as the one on the left in that picture. It suits me very well. I have 2 bedrooms. I have a single-car garage. I like my house. It's a great house for me to be, as I age, a retired person in. It is not too small for other people to retire in. It's perfect. If I have a guest, they can sleep in the second bedroom. It's great. I have everything on one level. A house of that size is a good house. In the case that both of these houses are going to go away, one thing I would really like to see done is don't tear them down. Call Otting house movers. Have them picked up and moved. Both houses are small enough. This is very doable. It saves a waste of materials going into a landfill. Makes someone else happy to be able to put a house on a brand new foundation someplace else, or a nice little lake cabin, something. But please, let's not continue tearing down perfectly decent structures.
Thank you, Ms. Weston.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All right, do we have anybody online? Okay. All right, we've had some oral testimony here this evening. The recommendation of our Community Development Director, Kerry Teague, is that we have a motion to close the in-person public hearing, keep the public input open until Sunday, May 12th, and continue the action to the May 21, 2024 City Council meeting. Someone care to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Member Agnew moves. Member Jackson seconds. The motion as stated. Any further conversation on that motion? All those in favor of adoption of the motion stated say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We'll take this matter up at the May 21 City Council meeting, and we'll leave the record open for public input until Sunday, the end of the business or end of the day on Sunday, May 12th. All right, we've got one other, we got 2 other, I guess, public hearing matters this evening. Director Teague.
Set? Okay. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This is a site that you're familiar with. We went through a sketch plan proposal for a dental office on this site. So it's located in our Cahill Office and Industrial Park. Current zoning is Planned Office District 2. It is guided in our comprehensive plan for office use, located right here. Located on the site today is a 110,000 square foot office building. The proposal is to build the new 6,000 square foot dental office in the southeast corner of the site. So as I mentioned, they did go through sketch plan, and as you recall, the main focus was the surface parking lot in front of the building along Metro Boulevard. and the potential of, or the issue of bringing the building up closer to the road, and then there was concern about if we did that, patients would have to cross the drive aisle in order to get to the building. So the applicant has revised the plans to address both those issues. They've moved the building up. There would be green space, landscaping in front. They've shifted the entrance a little bit to the north, and they've provided the parking, main parking for the clinic along the side of the building so patients don't have to cross that drive aisle. In shifting the building, in order to preserve the existing drive aisle, they had to shift the building 10 feet to the south. So they're also requesting a variance from that side property line from 20 feet to 10 feet. Here's a look at the existing building. The applicant can go into a little more detail about the building. So the request is a site plan review and variances for first floor ceiling height from 20 to 10 feet. And that side yard setback that I mentioned. They're also requesting a subdivision of the property. So looking at the site plan, it does comply with all of our minimum setback standards with the exception of the two provisions that I mentioned. There is adequate parking on the site. A traffic study was done by Stantec. Ed Terhar is on the call with us should you have any questions, but the study does conclude that the existing roadways can support the project and there is adequate parking. So here's a look at the site plan. The area that's highlighted in red, that's the new lot configuration. There is a sidewalk that's contemplated along Metro Boulevard in our bike and pedestrian plan. Engineering has concluded that we won't request the sidewalk be constructed on this site. Rather, when the roadway is improved in the future, there's adequate room within the right-of-way to provide those boulevard-style sidewalks that we require. So no additional sidewalk is being requested at this time. Building materials comply with our code. The applicant does have a materials board if you care to look at that. Again, here's the preliminary plat. So primary issues that we considered with Planning Commission are the variances justified. Planning Commission is recommending approval. The vote was 9-0. We believe that the variance criteria is met. The intent of the ordinance is met. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan in terms of the land uses, and it meets the 3 zoning test. The intent of a side yard setback is to provide adequate space between buildings. The closest building to the south is set back 165 feet away. So the rear of this building would still be 70 feet away from the building to the south. So there's adequate space in between buildings. Again, the proposed uses are consistent with the comprehensive plans. In terms of that 20-foot ceiling height, this is one of our work plan items for the Planning Commission, and we've been discussing that over the last few months. It's looking like they're recommending that those 20-foot ceiling requirements remain, but only in the Southdale district with multi-use buildings. So we're still noodling through that, but the idea is to take it away from districts outside of the Southdale area. So this plan would be consistent with that. And as I mentioned, the traffic study concludes there would be no impacts. With that, again, we're recommending that you close the in-person public hearing and keep input open until Sunday, May 12th, and then continue action to your next meeting. With that, I can take any questions, and the applicant is here for a presentation as well.
Ask you quickly, does the request to create a subdivision result in a park dedication fee also being created? All right.
It does, and the amount... I've got it here. It's based on the square footage.
You can certainly do that computation. You don't have to do it right now.
Yes, sorry, I've
While
got
you're
it in
sitting
here,
down,
but
yeah. That's fine. And I think some of our colleagues have questions here. So, Member Jackson, did you have?
Yeah,
question for
actually, you
Director
asked
Teague?
my question, but I don't see it in the resolution. Is that something that would be included in the resolution in the final?
It should be in the resolution, yes. There is a park dedication, and I apologize, I didn't get that in. I'll get that in for the next time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions for Director Teague at this point in time? Well, yes, Member Agnew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I look at some of the photographs included in our packet, it looks like there are trees nearish this site. I can't tell from a lot line perspective where those fall. Can you walk me through if any of those trees will be needing to be removed, if you know?
Yeah, I have a rendering in the packet. This doesn't show trees that are removed. They're required to provide landscaping based on the perimeter of the site. So we take into account existing trees as well as proposed, and it is well within our code requirements. Any final landscape plan approval is subject to review and approval of the city forester, so they take a look at that at the time of a building permit. They're also required to submit a letter of credit for the landscaping that's required. It is based on 150% of the value of the landscaping that goes in, and we hold on to that letter of credit for 2 years.
Thank you. The other question, and I can also ask the applicant this if you're not aware of it, but I think that the table suggested 31 parking spaces for the parking minimums that we have are, I think, 20. So what's driving, if you know, the requirement for like a 50%, more than 50% increase in parking?
The more than 50, I'm not sure I follow.
If the parking minimums suggest 20 and they're providing 31, that would be a 50% increase over the minimum.
Oh, right. So within this lot, it's all shared parking. So there would be easements established over both parcels that allow access to and from, as well as the ability to park. So somebody in this office building could also use these spaces as well. So based on the total square footage of all the buildings here, they're required 389 spaces, and the existing and proposed parking is 412, so they exceed our code.
And I'll tackle this one with the applicant, but what I'm curious about is why we need to exceed the code within this site. I can come back to that with the applicant. Thank you.
Questions for Director Teague? I think you can wait till you come up to make your presentation. Member Risser.
Will any heritage or protected trees be removed?
That I do not know. As we've discussed this evening, we have not been enforcing the preservation, the tree preservation ordinance on commercial properties.
You can address that issue with the applicant too. Any other questions for Director Teague at this point in time? Comes Director Milner.
The park dedication fee is $4,900.
Okay. We know you can do math too, but nice to have somebody do that for you while you're talking, while you're busy. All right, let's bring the applicant up here and hear about how the plans changed since they were here for a sketch plan and spend a few minutes visiting with them. So, welcome, gentlemen. Make sure you identify yourselves and your business.
Thank you.
And your business address. Thank you.
Sorry, Ben Krisnak with Hempel Real Estate, 10050 Crosstown Circle, and developer.
Yeah, Chris Whitehouse with DJR Architecture. I'm the architect. We're at 333 Washington Avenue in Minneapolis.
Great. We have more of notes, comments, pithy remarks than a full presentation. So just talking about kind of the process here. So we came through planning and City Council, of course, with sketch plan. We heard you loud and clear on a few comments on the parking lot and shifting the building forward. So we tried to take those into account. We had to put our creative thinking hats on and move some things around. In terms of parking counts, as you look at the site, it's all parking right now today. And so we're placing a building on top of an existing parking lot. We are adding stormwater ponding in several locations on the site that doesn't exist today. And we worked extensively with 9 Mile Creek watershed. And I think we will probably be losing some additional parking if they want these basins to be a little bit larger to continue filtering and retaining water. In terms of trees, we're doing our best to save as many trees as possible. There's a couple on, I think, kind of mid. No, does a pointer work on here? Basically, kind of in the middle of our building, there's some kind of scrubby looking trees that will probably come out, but I think they'll be replaced with higher quality.
I have an image of a street view here.
If you have an overhead cam.
Are we able to zoom in on this? Okay. Sure.
Oh, we're sorry.
All right. So if you want to zoom in, these larger trees, it's sort of a stand of sort of 3 trees right there. Those we do fully intend to keep and to have remain. These ones that are further back, we are going to lose. But part of the reason for that is before, when we came before you, we were respecting the 20-foot side yard setback, which didn't allow our building to coexist with the sidewalk and then the parking spaces just to the north of the building. That's why we had that parking lot, if you remember, between our building and Metro Boulevard, which was sort of the source of some feedback. So in lieu, to make this parking layout work, where we get a significant number of spaces that you don't have to cross a drive aisle to, we did have to push the building south, and that's the reason we're coming forward with a request for the side yard setback variance.
And just to comment a little bit more on the building, we did skinny the building up as much as we could. There are just physical realities of running an endodontic clinic, and some of that is, okay, you lay someone back on a chair, you need a 84-inch chair. The doctor needs some space to navigate around that chair. And so there's a point where it's like 9.6 maybe works in one of those rooms, but you get to 9.3, and now it just gets too tight to get around the patient to adequately service the patient. So, yeah. In terms of the 20 feet, we are hitting that with the lobby, and we actually did make the lobby a little bit bigger. Since
the height requirement.
Yeah, sorry, the height requirement. Yep. We did make the lobby a little bit bigger. We thought that would set it off to the street a little bit nicer and then create a nicer environment inside. So.
One other thing, I did bring this plan to show that one comment at planning was where are the bike racks. So we did add that versus the copy that you have in front of you.
And there are 3 bike racks, so that'll accommodate at least 6 bikes. Employees, I imagine, could even bring their bike in the building, so there should be plenty of bike capacity, and we support people biking. I bike around Edina all the time, so I think I think that will be a nice addition.
Do you want to get your materials board and show us your materials? Sure. Please.
As you can see, Thanks, yeah. The majority of the building is stone. This lower portion, the portion near the ground sidewalk is this. The majority of the darker gray would be this stone. The wood look material, that's actually the metal panel, but it's longboard. It's used in a lot of nice projects. It's a wood look metal panel. And then all of the sort of canopy and roof that you can see and trim storefront is dark bronze.
And the nice thing about the metal panel is it won't fade.
Nope.
It won't start to rot and that kind of thing. So, and then this is a pretty significant stone here, Chris.
Yeah.
Are you sure we can afford that?
Well, I'm just the architect.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a thick stone. It's not just a real thin.
Comments on materials or anything else from council members? So is this a big glassed in area? Is that where people can walk by then and watch surgery?
That's the waiting area, lounge, and reception. Yep.
Oh, it's a nice touch. I think that was another thing that we talked a little bit about, was trying to be more engaging with the site and the street, and so that was good. And that parking was really quite an improvement, quite a dramatic improvement there. Member Jackson?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that this is the eastern side of the building that we're looking at, sort of looking from the northeast, southwest.
Correct.
Point
We're looking
point to
from
which
the
corner
northeast.
that is on the plan there.
Yes, we would be looking.
Okay.
Can you see my finger? Yeah. I have some other sort of axons here. Here you are. So yes, this view here sort of shows that area that we're showing in the rendering there, where the majority of the building is, yes, lower windows, because those would be the operatories.
And it looks as though you've got all four sides are pretty. We don't have like a back of the building at any point. Right. Okay, terrific. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for the applicants, folks on the council? All right. Member Usser?
I think you have addressed the concerns very well that were raised during the sketch plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. This is a public hearing matter. Again, opening it up for public testimony. If there's anybody in the audience who wishes to testify, feel free to come forward. Then we'll go online and see if there's anybody ready to testify. And again, I think the notion of Director Teague here is that we close the in-person public hearing, keep the public input open until Sunday, May 12th, and continue the action to the May 21st, 2024 City Council meeting. Is that correct, Director Teague? Okay. I'm not seeing anybody coming forward here in the audience. Anybody online?
I don't have anyone online, but because no one spoke yet, I think we should wait a minute or so in case someone tries to dial in. My clock shows that it's 10:05. I will come back to you at 10:06, or when we have a caller, whichever's first.
Okay, very good. Again, folks, if you're listening online and wish to testify, the matter is open for public testimony at this point in time.
It is now 10:06, and I still don't have a caller, so I think it's safe for you to move forward.
Thank you, Director Benarott. Is there someone on the council that cares to make a motion to close the in-person public hearing and keep the public input open until Sunday, May 12th, and continue the action on Resolution 2024-31 to the May 21, 2024 City Council meeting?
So moved. Second.
Member Agnew moves. Member Jackson seconds. The motion is stated. Any further conversation or discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the motion as stated say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And one more public hearing matter Director Milner has, and this I think he'd like some action on yet this evening after we complete the public hearing portion of it. And it's a street that I don't know if any of us have ever heard of. I thought it was a typo when I first saw this on the mini Wawa. Oh.
Thank you, Mayor. Mini Wawa Avenue. It's right, or used to be, right outside of City Hall here. So we found some, we didn't find some documentation to support an easement vacation that supposedly happened in the 70s. So we're here tonight to reaffirm the vacation of Mini Wawa Avenue embodied in Resolution 2024-34. So during drawing the legal boundary of Tupa Park, the historic properties right over here, there was an unresolved right-of-way vacation related to the highway expansion. Property records are difficult to find. There's been references to this vacation of Mini Wawa Avenue, but no recorded document. So to resolve the matter and allow for a clean legal description, we're recommending we conduct this vacation this evening and affirm that the road is formally vacated. So there's Tupa Park, and that yellow was platted as Mini Wawa Avenue back in the day, and there was a driveway. Mr. Neuendorf found a picture of a driveway that supported two single-family homes there in that area. No longer needed, of course, because of the park and the highway expansion. So we're asking for a vacation of that officially to reaffirm it. There's no issues with private utilities. We did open it up to Better Together Edina to seek any public comments and received none. So we're recommending you close the public hearing this evening and adopt Resolution 2024-34, affirming that right-of-way vacation.
Do you want to go back to the slide with the location on it again so we can all kind of appreciate Mini Wawa Avenue for a moment? Okay, pretty fascinating. All right, thank you for that. Any questions for Director Milner? Yes.
So if we're vacating a street there, does that mean we own that land?
Well, we own the park.
We own the park.
And we're working with MnDOT on the rest of it associated with the larger interchange project when we remove those off-ramps.
Yeah, but we don't know who owns the yellow strip north of
MnDOT
Tupa.
says they own it.
Okay. But we had the right to put a street there, and we're vacating that.
We're just
because
vacating
we're not
through
sure.
the park.
Oh, just through the park.
I just highlighted where Mini
Okay.
Wawa went to the north.
Okay.
I should have stopped my highlighting
Okay.
within the park. So you're just
All right.
vacating within the city property, right?
Okay, terrific, thank you.
Okay, other questions for our new resident expert on Mini Wawa Avenue? All right. This is a public hearing matter. Let's open it up for public testimony. Is there anybody that cares to testify regarding the potential easement vacation of Mini Wawa Avenue? Nobody is coming forward. Anybody online that wants to talk to us about Mini Wawa Avenue?
No, I feel badly, but I really do think we should still wait a minute.
Okay.
There'll be the one time, and then someone will say I was trying to get in. My clock shows that it's 10:10, so I'll come back to you at 10:11, or when I have a caller, whichever's first.
Whoever makes the motion here, we're going to let them say the word Mini Wawa. Just so
Mr.
everybody
Mayor?
can kind of revel in saying Mini Wawa.
Mr. Mayor, it would be great if someone who spoke Ojibwe could tell us what that meant. Don't you think? It's like we have Minnesota and Minnehaha, and what does Mini Wawa mean?
Got time to Google it here real quick.
There you go.
I think we should have a street sign somewhere preserved or something for Mini Wawa. That could have been a good name for that restaurant in Maison Green, the Mini Wawa.
All right, it means make a good sound or laughing water. With that, it is 10:11, and I think it's safe for you to move forward.
All right. Is there anyone who cares to make a motion adopting Resolution 2024-34, vacating the right-of-way easement at Mini Wawa Avenue? Member Pierce, you want to say
So
you'd like to vacate?
Would love to vacate Mini Wawa.
I will second the motion to vacate Mini Wawa Avenue.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of adopting the resolution as stated, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Oh, okay. We get a resolution accepting donations to adopt Resolution 2024-36. Someone care to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Member Jackson, second Member Pierce, to adopt Resolution 2024-36, which accepts donations on behalf of the City of Edina. We've got one donation in this reporting period. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting the resolution 2024-36, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And this reporting period, a person named Jin Wenzong in Edina has donated a generous sum of $3,200 for a memorial bench at Bredesen Park. Really quite generous. Thank you to the Wenzong family for that. All right, and now we are on to commission correspondence. I don't think we've had anything come in. You provided us what was there before, and we're on to manager comments.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have one comment. That is to let you know we are in the early stages of trying to reschedule the joint meeting between the HRA and the Edina Housing Foundation. We've identified a couple of dates at the staff level. Jennifer Garsky will be reaching out to both the HRA and the Housing Foundation to see if we can put this meeting together.
All right, thank you.
That's all, thank you.
All right, thanks. Member Agnew, council comments.
I think the only one for me is over, I guess this was maybe a week ago, I did a sit-along with dispatch here within the city. And just want to appreciate my dispatch hostee, Cara, was absolutely amazing. And I think that I learned a lot, and the timeliness was perfect with our appreciation of the proclamation tonight. I should actually quote the exact name of that proclamation that we did, but that one was for National Police Week. And so just really amazing to see all of the work that our city does. And I think that additional appreciation that we often talk about, but the fact that we kind of maintain our own ambulance services as well, I think is really impactful. So it was just a really great experience, and would encourage anyone to kind of use that opportunity to view the inner workings of our city in that regard, if there's of an interest there. So that's all for me.
Thanks, Member Agnew. Member Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So originally I didn't have any comments, but there is one thing I'd like to talk about, because I've gotten this question a couple of times, and the question is, someone might say to me, what do I like about being on council? And what they talk about most, the question is around voting. And these are just my comments, but it's came up twice in this meeting. I don't view council's role is to say yes and no to things. And so I think people see that, and yeah, we do vote, but really the role is about, and these are my comments, the role is about framing what outcomes we want. And the hard work is working with, listening to the community, working with service providers in the community to frame what future outcomes we want. And most of that work, working with the city staff, is done outside of council. It's not done on the dais. That work is done outside of council. And it culminates in, sure, a vote. Yes, no. But the purpose of the role, in my opinion, is framing outcomes. And so when we looked at the housing PUD, the funny thing to me when I look at things like that, if we vote for that, we get an outcome. if we say no to it, we get another outcome. The question is, well, which are those two outcomes ones that we want? And if they're not, then what outcome would be preferred, and what work do we have to do to set a frame towards that outcome? And so I don't at all view the responsibility as a council member to just vote yes and no every other Tuesday. It's about the work that you do leading into that, and then the conversations that you have with the community, and like I said, with city staff, and then service providers in the community to really try to frame and set a future outcome that we think is the right direction for the city. And if we do a good job at that as a council, then we set the right path for the community. And Member Jackson has been saying this lately a lot, for the next 100 years. And so I enjoy the work that we're doing, but I just thought I would share that's the perspective that I use as I go through and consider the work in front of us.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for those thoughts. Member Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I loved when Chair Lewis stood up and talked about the time and talent that our citizens who serve on commissions give. And we had a commission recognition event last Thursday, and it was just a delightful event to sit and have a little something to eat with our commission members and visit about their experience and get to know each other. And I was just so grateful to everybody who came, and it was a wonderful thing, and I'm very thankful for everybody's service. And the same day was the day we had the groundbreaking on the fire station number 2. It was fun to throw the dirt. And it's May, so we've got lots going on. So tomorrow I'm going to drop off clothing for the clothing swap, which is going to occur on Thursday. So everybody, if you like the idea of a zero waste economy, drop off your clothing for the swap and then come find some new at the thing. So I've got some Halloween costumes to get rid of. And coming up on the same day, I think, is the Electrify Everything and our Days of Remembrance, I believe, are a week from Wednesday. Is that correct? But I want to remind people that that's coming up as well. So if you're interested in how you can get grant money for electrifying your home, I went to the first Electrify Everything. It was very interesting. But I will be at the Days of Remembrance, which I'm super excited about learning more at that event. So that's what's going on. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Barusser.
Tomorrow, May 8th, is Bike Walk to School Day. So just everybody keep that in mind as you're out and about. And I think it's just really wonderful to have that and promote getting to school that way. So that's all I have.
Okay. Member Pierce's comment caused me to think about conversation we've had a couple of times and over the last few months, and that is, I'll call it future planning. And we've always been really good about that. When I first got on the council, we were doing kind of the work of the day, the things that needed attention in the here and now, but kind of collectively asked the question, well, what do we think, when are we going to do the work around planning what we want our town to look like over the next 20, 30 years? And so we've raised that issue again because it just feels like it's that kind of time again to kind of look at what we did before and be thinking about the future. I know, Manager Neal, if you've had any conversations with, I know the last time we did this, David Burrow led the effort, Future IQ, and the planning for the future of Edina, and I don't know if any work's been done along those lines or not, or Director Teague, if anybody's given that some thought.
We haven't yet, but as I mentioned at the retreat, we were involved in that about this time in 2014. So if the council is of a mind to kind of start that process again with the more kind of futurist approach, he's a local. We've had good luck with him. He's interested. He'd like to do the project if we want him to do it.
Yeah, well, we should have that conversation. I think people are probably of the mindset, isn't it? Time to look at the future of our town again and engage our citizenry. Last time we did it, I think we had well over 250 people involved, and a lot of tabletop exercises out at Braemar, as I recall. With some interesting conversations that took place. We've got a special election coming up on Tuesday, May 14th. That District 6 Commissioner's position is open. We've got 2 final candidates there. One of them our state legislator Heather Edelson, another one a business person. Also on the 18th, there is the Edina Asian American Association or Alliance event at Roslyn Park, if I remember correctly, EAAA event, 5/18. Get that on your calendar. It starts at noon, I think noon to 4. As I mentioned earlier, when the girls soccer team was here, that was a great event over at the Capitol, and want to thank everybody that participated in that and made it possible. And then Member Jackson and I were part of a conversation down at 50th and France at a meeting last Friday. And then we've had a couple of meetings since then. And I think we're going to have to, we'll see where this goes with the E-line, proposed E-line construction. But they're proposing right now that 50th be closed for 3 to 4 months through 50th in France. And you figure out how that's going to work and small business survive. And 1 lane on France Avenue for 3 to 4 months. We got some serious conversation to have with the Met Council about their planning around this. So stay tuned. We might have to have some special meetings about this. Anyway, that's it's a very, very serious thing, I think. Not that we don't think the E-line's important, but it seems to me that there's some way to do this and not be the death knell for several businesses down there having 50th. I mean, and then those 10,000 cars a day that use 50th, where are they going? They're going into single-family neighborhoods as they try to find their way out of that dilemma down there. So we got to think this through and work hard on it with the Met Council. And I just got a text from our rep at the Met Council about that very issue, so it made me think about it. I wanted to share that information with you. And then I spoke with the Edina Realty Realtors this morning and kind of gave them a mini state of the city update, things that we've been working on. And that's it for me. Manager Neal, anything else? Anybody else got anything? Yes, Member Pierce.
Just you mentioned the special election, and so I don't know if we need to do this or not, but you mentioned, I think you were talking about the city commissioner.
The county commissioner.
The county commissioner.
Yep.
And you mentioned Heather. But just so nobody's thinking that we're endorsing a candidate, I do know, I actually only know of 2 people from Edina, but there might be others. So I know of Heather and I know of Janet.
Yep. But
I don't know of anybody else.
The 2 candidates are Heather Edelson and Marissa Simonetti.
Okay.
And they were the top vote getters in the primary.
That came out of the primary.
Yep.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
okay.
So, and they're both Edina residents, so
all
we
6
win either way.
That's what I wanted to do.
all 6 were Edina residents.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks for that input. All right. Is there a motion? Well, I guess we don't have to. But I like having a motion to adjourn.
Yes. So moved.
Member Pierce moves to adjourn.
Second.
Who else wants to adjourn this thing?
Second, I'm going to go look for Mini Wawa Avenue.
All right. Member Jackson seconds adjourning. And any further discussion? All those in favor of adjourning say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.